Hello everybody. Welcome back to BSG. You're still watching and we're still here raising money for Mind. My name is Shadowfrost and I'll be your host for this upcoming run, and it's gonna be a good one because we're gonna be watching Octopath Traveler, the Galdera percent. Is it percent? Oh my, I didn't fully see, but I'm sure our wonderful runner can tell you all about it. So yeah, quadraaceps, take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm quadraaceps and I run Galdera in Octopath Traveler. So this is a full game category, and essentially we're going to be completing the entire game, beating every story, and also some of the secret bosses and final super boss. So I hope you all enjoy. It's a really cool run, a lot of intricacies to the route. And yeah, I'm joined here today by my two buddies who will be commentating for me. Zero and Sanjan, maybe y'all could say hi.
Hey guys, I'm Zero. I used to run this game also, once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
I'm Sanjan. I also used to run this game, not much anymore, but I used to run Waldy a decent bit in the past.
Yeah, so these two runners, they have really good times on the board as well, and they know a lot about the route, maybe even more than me, so definitely very good to have them commentating here today. So let's get right into things actually. So the timer will start when I select yes on the first character here. So I'll give a countdown. We'll go let's do on go, so 3, 2, 1, go. So 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so this is Octopath Traveler. We are going to start off with Tressa because she's the best girl, and I'm gonna let the others explain what's going on in the first chapter here.
Yeah, so Quadra's gonna run up to the shop and buy a wolf's bowl with the money that he has, because he needs a pretty good weapon to get him through this first chapter. Thankfully, a lot of this initial part of the first chapter is just pressing B to skip cutscenes, which thankfully you can do a lot of. So we're going to be introduced to Tressa's path action, which is purchase, and I'll let Zero explain.
So every character in this game has their own unique abilities and path actions. Tressa is the merchant starting character, and her ability is to purchase things from NPCs, which is incredibly useful. There's a lot of items available a lot earlier than you'd be able to get them normally through purchase, and we'll be taking advantage of that. Additionally, they also have, I forgot the term for it, but it's like a support skill on top. Tressa's is Eye for Money. And what that does, and whenever you run around in an area with potential enemy encounters, like dungeons and whatnot, she picks up money. So you want to get her as soon as possible in the run, so she is just looting money off the ground everywhere we go. And it'll actually generate a good amount of money throughout the run.
So you're going to see Quadra walk here for a little bit. I'll be explained in detail later, but this is to sort of reduce the amount of counters you can get.
Way to start off the run.
Encounters in here? Oh no.
That's fairly early. So yeah, walking at the start before you get evasive maneuvers, which we'll go into later, actually does reduce the encounter rate a little bit. And ideally, we want to get through this chapter with only this screen rather, with only 2 encounters. Hunter tends to walk more, so you can try to get it, but with that spot for the encounters is a bit less likely. Right there, we had our first encounter, and it was actually also an ambush. Great start to Octopath. So this game does have preempts, ambushes, and like normal battles. If you get preempted or ambushed, there's like a 2-second text at the start of the battle, and then if you preempt, you get run away right away, and you get all your turns.
Oh, unlucky. I almost made it to the end.
Oh, that's pretty unlucky.
You can usually make it to the end from there with walking.
Yeah, it was pretty unlucky because the encounter steps are so Octopath is a step-based encounter system, so the steps can vary. So Quadra got pretty unlucky on that part.
Yeah, for reference, you can actually make it from where I started walking. You can actually run all the way and still make it without an encounter. So the fact that I walked all the way and still got an encounter, that was kind of unlucky.
Coming up, we're gonna have the first battle that we're actually gonna kill. So you'll notice during each battle, each enemy has like a little shield with a number in it, and like some boxes with question marks at the moment. So the shield is the amount of shields that they have, and if you knock all of those off, they're broken, which is essentially they take double damage and they can't move for a turn. And the question mark boxes are their weaknesses. Since we haven't revealed any yet, so you don't know what they are, but we know what they are because we're speedrunners.
Yeah.
And basically pretty much the battle strategy for most of the run is to break things and then kill them because they take double damage once they're broken. Additionally, you might have noticed that Quadra boosted up his last attack, and you might notice in the top right corner there are these 3 little circles above Tress's name. Those are your boost points. So essentially every turn you generate a boost point, and you can use up to 3 boost points to buff your attacks up. Physical attacks, they attack 1 extra time for each boost point. For like skills, it increases the damage. The rough strategy you'll be seeing throughout the run is break shields and then boost a big attack on enemies, which we'll be seeing with our first boss fight here.
Yeah, so for this boss fight here, you're going to see Quadra spam trade winds to break Nick first, so full set of trade winds to break him, and then a fully boosted trade winds will kill him, and now we just have Mac left, so... you have to kind of think on your feet here based on like the damage you take in a turn order here, so basically the general consensus after this is to pretty much use 1 more set of trade winds, another set of boosted trade winds, and then wait until you have full BP so that you can break him, because he's a little bit more beefier than Mac and takes a little bit more to take out.
Luckily, he also does less damage. That's why we kill Nick first as well. We can kill him faster and he hurts more. And we also haven't mentioned... Oh, let me start off by saying the ideal fight here. You only heal once, 1 healing grape. That gets you the best turn count. But with the route that Quadra is doing for the marathon, it's actually a lot easier because we killed that pirate. And when you kill a pirate... Well, when you kill that pirate here, you level up. So we're 1 level higher here than what you would be if you're going for a record. In record attempts, you would skip that fight. But you also, whenever you level up in this game, you get a full heal. And that's used out throughout the run. We'll be doing like we'll try to skip as many heals as possible, essentially, by trying to level up at strategic times.
Yeah, a bit of trivia about that fight. It used to be done differently. We used to grab an item to kind of do the boss fight a bit quicker. But the thing is, by getting that item, you also get extra encounters. So on average, this new strategy is actually faster, even though the boss fight itself is longer.
I think back when I timed it, it was like 5 seconds faster. But the big benefit is with the extra item pickup, you were much more likely to get a 3rd encounter. Whereas with this, it's very unlikely to even get 2 encounters.
Yeah, it's just a lot more consistent than the older strategy, which generally you could get 2 encounters in there. With this new strategy, it's a lot more rare.
And that 5 seconds assumes like you get away right away. You could also fail escapes or get ambushed and whatnot. So it just reduces the variance, which is very nice.
It's very nice.
This chapter a lot.
Yeah, so now that we've completed Tress's first chapter, this world is pretty much free for us to explore. And so we're going to make a beeline to Atlas Dam to recruit our first character, Cyrus. And then we're going to be taking encounters on the way here. Oh, that's a little unlucky.
Fish fins.
The fish. It's probably the most dangerous encounter in this area. They hurt. There's ants later on that also hurt, but pretty equivalent, honestly.
Yeah. The bad thing about these kind of double encounters is that you notice I've been breaking a lot of encounters and running from them. That guarantees escape, but there's no way to break encounters where there are 2 monsters at the same time at this point of the run. So I'm forced to just quote-unquote YOLO flee. Yeah, and if you get unlucky, you can not only take a lot of damage, but also lose a lot of time.
If you get really unlucky and you're greedy, you can theoretically even game over.
Yeah.
But one nice thing about this game is that you autosave every time you enter a different screen, for the most part. And so if you game over, you just start at the end of the previous screen. So it sucks, but it's not like you have to start from the beginning of the game again.
Yeah, this game is pretty beginner friendly because deaths generally aren't punishing, since you just you autosave every time you transition through an area, unless there's a few specific cases. But for the most part, deaths just mean you get really annoyed, and then you continue on from pretty much the area before.
Big time loss, but your run isn't over. So here we're getting our second character, Cyrus. Cyrus is a scholar, and the reason we get him is because of a scholar support skill that we want to get as soon as possible. Well, we get that soon enough, but we got to do this chapter 1 now, and unlike Tressa's, where we had to go through a bit of her story, which we haven't explained at all, by the way, and like see what was going on. Every character after the first character, you can skip their story stuff for chapter 1, so it makes it a lot faster. You just breeze on through into their dungeon.
I think the main thing about Tressa's story is a good TLDR is quest to become best merchant in the world. There you go.
He wants to go on an adventure pretty much.
Lost my journal. Wow.
Little special bones.
Ooh, Mr. Bones.
Your bones.
This is not that bad. That's category.
Good thing you have enough JP to learn the most powerful skill in the game, hired help, right after this. Even with bones, which gives fewer JP.
We haven't really talked about JP or EXP yet, so after each battle you get EXP, JP, and money, and drops. EXP is standard leveling, JP is job points, and you can use it to teach skills, which is very important. And yep, time for the most OP skill for at least like the whole first half of the game right here. Hired help.
Yeah, we killed that pirate because killing both of those killing the pirate in chapter 1 gives you just enough JP to learn hired help.
That pirate plus 2 battles in here guarantees it, essentially. Also, time to see some hired help action and some soulstone action. We didn't go over it yet, but we got a soulstone M from the Mick and Mac fight. It's a consumable that does a set amount of damage to all enemies, essentially. We're using them a lot from the early mid-game. We'll be specifically collecting them. And they're very good in early game because they're set damage. They don't see off level our XP, so while we're weak, they're very strong. And there you saw hired help dancers, and it's a 2-turn boss fight already.
Yeah, really
those dancers do a lot of damage compared to the damage you can output at this level. And we thought dancers was a lot of damage. Wait until you see hired help veterans.
Yeah, hired help is just an OP skill. Bit of a fun fact, so it's called Shadow Step. The hired help dancers is called Shadow Step in English. In German, it's called Scha-Cha-Cha, which is kind of funny because it's kind of a play on words because Sha kind of means like shadow. But Scha-Cha-Cha is kind of like... sounds pretty cute.
Yeah,
sounds a bit like a dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. You see Quadra grab the light soulstone M there. He's going to be using it to... basically, now we need to grind for evasive maneuvers, and the quickest way to get it is by going to an area called Whistlewood, which is every runner's definitely favorite place.
I'll go every runner's favorite enemy, the frogs. Speaking of.
Yeah, thankfully, Tressa and Cyrus have it easy when it comes to grinding JP, because we need a total of 130 JP on Cyrus in order to get our first support skill for scholars, which is evasive maneuvers.
Yeah,
evasive maneuvers basically enables us to take double steps. The double amount of steps that we need to get an encounter, and basically, well, that's just explore the whole world.
Yeah, Tressa clears the encounters very easily with her higher health bandits. Cyrus is just kind of tagging along and like just kind of hiding behind a bush until Tressa clears the encounters. He's just there to leech the JP, but again, we need him for evasive maneuvers.
So, quick extra rundown on skill. So you can learn skills in essentially any order you want. You can learn whatever skill you want from like any class at any time besides divine skills, which you have to learn last, but that's just one skill. But as you learn more skills from a class, the cost to learning the next one increases. So like the first one's 30, next one's 100, next one's 500, next one's 1,000, next one's 2,000, I believe. Then divine's 5,000. And support skills, you learn a support skill after the first 2 skills in a job, and then like another support skill for every one after that until you get to second to last one before divine. Each class has a total of 4 support skills. Evasive maneuvers is the first support skill of Scholar. So we need to learn 2 skills to teach that, which is 130 JP. 30 for the first skill, 100 for the second skill. So that's the goal for Cyrus right now. We want to get 130 JP. That is kind of hard when you only find frogs like Quadra's doing right now.
We got a special 5 encounter all frogs whistle, perhaps? We gotta look at this last encounter. If we get frogs, then... Oh, okay. Well... It would have been nice if I got this encounter earlier, because this encounter gives a lot of JP and would have been enough to give me to skip the previous encounter that I took.
Yeah, this is like the best one. Best one being 3 ants. The one encounter in Whistlewood itself matters a lot more. If you get something with worms or the birds, that gets you in one battle, essentially guaranteed. If you get frogs in Whistlewood, you need to kill stuff outside. And for safety, we're obviously just gonna kill stuff outside. You can also get ambushed in Whistlewood, which luckily Quadra didn't in this run. If you get ambushed in Whistlewood, it's basically just death, and you gotta redo it.
Yeah, getting an ambush in Whistlewood is actually pretty common because you're much lower level than you're supposed to be. It's like a level 15 area and you're like level 7.
Yeah.
Getting
It's
killed
not that
there
bad
is
in
quite
categories.
common.
It's not that bad in categories where you can actually kill stuff outside of Whistlewood because you can take any battle, but there are categories for this game that can't kill battles outside quickly, so what you do there is you just run into Whistlewood and hope you get a good battle, and if you don't, you die, you're trying to run. And you re-enter and you hope for a good battle again ad infinitum, or until you get a good battle.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of starting with Tressa as well, is that you have access to Hired Hell. It makes the Whistlewood grind a lot easier. If you were to start this category with, let's say, a Cyrus start, for example, it would be a lot worse.
Speaking of Cyrus Star, so there are 2 viable routes at the moment for Galdera. The routes are basically differentiated on who our main mage / damage dealer will be for most of the run. One of the options there is Cyrus, because as a scholar, he has the highest base elemental attack. But the big downsides of doing Cyrus Start, assuming you don't do Tressa Start then get Cyrus, is that your Whistlewood grind is a lot worse. The other thing is Cyrus's passive skill, like Tressa has Eye for Money. Cyrus's is, I forget the name, but essentially he finds an elemental weakness, or a weakness, on each enemy in battle when you enter a battle. It's called Steady Felt, there we go. And it essentially takes 2 seconds each battle, because it's like an extra prompt. So over the course of a run, it actually does lose a significant amount of time. I think I estimated at least about 2 minutes. And with other sorcerers, or at least with Cyrus not in the party, you don't have that disadvantage. Which is why the route that Quadra will be doing exists.
Yeah, so there's a couple other things with Cyrus, because with Cyrus you have to take some more risk. There's some allures or guide or allures which we'll explain about later, but you don't have a 100% chance to get it, and if you don't get it, you lose quite a bit of time. But with Ophelia, it's actually quite a bit more. It's much more consistent because it's guaranteed.
Plus, she's tankier too. So like, she does lose out on damage a bit, but she has more SP, so you don't have to restore his SP as much, and she has more HP, so she's a little bit easier to gear out for fights. Guarantee that she doesn't die.
Yeah, some fights are actually safer in this route compared to the Cyrus route, which used to be the main route for a very long time until I think it was last year. Where,
like a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah, about there, where the Ophelia route started to really take off.
Also, we haven't really mentioned the other characters' path actions. So Cyrus, for example, has Scrutinize. What Scrutinize does is it lets you like interrogate an NPC essentially. And they'll give you some kind of info, sometimes needed for story. The most useful one for us a lot of the time is hidden items, which basically just spawns an item on the floor somewhere that we can pick up. And it's a set item every time. But also, Cyrus's Scrutinize can fail, so you can distinguish a character's path actions between like rogues and nobles. There's 4 of each. And essentially the nobles have like a level requirement or some kind of set requirement, but they work 100% of the time if you can do them. And the rogues have a probability to fail if you're not high enough level. This is actually kind of unique in that she can always purchase no matter what. She doesn't have any kind of level requirements. Part of the reason why she's so good. The other characters are a bit more gated. In terms of nobles, and then there the rogues are a bit better because even if it's like lower chance, you can do it right away.
Yeah, we still want Cyrus though for the most part, even though we won't be keeping him for a while, because there's going to be a very useful Scrutinize that we kind of need to be able to get certain items
Cyrus.
in. Oh, that's very unlucky.
This is one of the worst screens in the run. It's one of the like longest screens, and if you get into a battle here, especially if you get ambushed, you probably just die. Which I think Quadra did die in this case. We're a bit delayed. Oh no, he lived. 15 HP. Fog.
Yeah, Tressa survived.
Nice.
Yeah, Tress is pretty tanky and can take a couple hits. Unfortunate for Cyrus, but we don't really need to rest Cyrus, at least not for a good while.
Yeah. Oh, something you can do now that Trust is 15 HP and Cyrus is dead, you can actually go for a yellow merchant shrine, because if you die, it doesn't really lose you much time.
Okay, fine, I'll do it. Since Zero mentioned it.
Yeah, you gotta do it for the content.
Oh, well.
Okay, I take it didn't go well.
You tried.
It's barely lose you time anyway, so that's why it was okay to do there. So
Yeah.
something we haven't mentioned is how step counters in this game work. Essentially, they have a set amount of steps. Well, not set amount. It's a little bit randomized, but it's generally a pretty consistent amount of steps you can take on each screen before you get into a random battle. And one of the ways to one of the things we abuse in the run is resetting the step counter. There's a few ways to do that. Dying is one of them. Reloading a save is another one, which I guess is what dying would do. What else is there? I'm like blanking a bit.
There's
Oh.
There's the prompt that you'll be seeing later on in the run, like the
Yeah.
prompt that says you want to face a boss. Generally, like optional bosses.
Yeah, we'll see that later, but also going to a different screen also resets your step counter, except in certain dungeons, which we'll get into shortly.
Generally in mansions.
Yeah.
The last one is cutscenes. Cutscenes also reset your step counter, at least certain cutscenes.
Yeah. Certain cutscenes.
So a lot of exploration that we're doing right now. Right now we're just like gathering stuff that we need. That was a shrine right there, by the way. That lets somebody else become a merchant. We haven't really explained that yet. We've gotten 3 shrines so far. We've gotten Scholar, Warrior, and Merchant. And characters can have 2 jobs. They have their main job that they're stuck with, and they can have a secondary job. And we'll be using these shrines to give characters secondary jobs.
Okay, I'm gonna have to red Cyrus here because there's an item here that I want to scrutinize.
Ugh, save quest. That's so boring.
No, it's the Thunderstone, but I'm also gonna scrutinize the safe route.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fair enough. I haven't ran No-Cade in so long. I forgot they actually get this with No-Cade.
Yeah.
Yes. So save quest is just safety money, which I forgot to headline in more detail, but yeah, Cyrus has a 30% scrutinize how you want to hit, and if we don't hit it, we cry, and also we're going to be down quite a bit of money, so that's why Quadra opted to go for the safety money there, but we'll be keeping Cyrus at least until that part, because he needs to be the one to do the scrutinize. Alphen, which is Cyrus's counterpart, needs level 35, I think, to get that, to be able to guarantee that certain scrutinize, so we just have to pick Cyrus, since getting to 35 just for those items would take too long.
Yeah, those items are really
That's
important.
pretty-
You're gonna see why later.
Essentially, Cyrus is only like really important job in like the early game, which is why we have to get him at this point.
Yeah,
I mean, we can get him a little bit later, but there's no point in delaying him right now.
Yeah, you really
just
want
make
those
the-
items early. It's Cyrus's only important job, and he manages to not do it a lot of the time, so...
It's about an 80, 85% chance
Yeah,
of getting them
85,
within
about there.
5 tries. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was like 82 to 88, depending if it's 30 or 36% to get it first 5 tries.
Yeah.
Ooh, birds.
Yeah, we got
RPG
the RPG jerk
jerkbirds.
birds here, as Sunny would like to call him. Our friend Sunny, who also runs Octopath.
Yeah, kind of wish we had him with us. He is like the war master of our marathon commentary runs.
But the good thing is that even if we die, we just reload at save, and now I can try again. It's just about a 30-second time loss. Oh, okay. Got a special.
Hey, we got bush skip this time.
Got bird skip, but it's not blessed because I still got the encounter.
RPG jerk crabs. There you go.
This is not something you see very often because normally if you die, if you're going for a really good time, you just reset, so you only ever see the birds. But interestingly enough, if you reload and then you get another encounter, you don't always get the birds. The birds are a fixed encounter for the first time you get an encounter on this screen, but like subsequently it's not always the birds.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't really do much about this because it's just a RNG luck roll.
You could opt into skipping the Thunder Elstone, but the battle's actually really uncommon, and it's not really worth it to skip. It's useful to actually deal with later on screens where you can potentially get a random battle. Because at that point, we will actually be able to kill some of them. But the birds here, we can't kill ever. Too strong for us at the moment.
May I come in here with a quick donation?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. Yeah, we got a 10-euro donation from Kate. I hope I didn't butcher your name there. Without a comment, but thank you so much. And that actually went towards keeping the language in English at the moment, because that donation incentive is still open. So if you, at any point during the run, want to see a language switch here to Japanese, you gotta donate for that. It's so yeah.
Oh, I
That's it
didn't
from-
realize it was English. It was actually in Japanese, so I'll gonna change it. Wait, it's like yeah.
Ah, it's English is in the lead right now, so
Okay.
I made sure at the start.
No, that's a crime. How could you?
It's okay.
like
We only
English
really need Japanese when we get to Olbrich's chapters.
Remember, guys, donate for Japanese when we get to Olbrich's chapter. Make
Yeah.
Quadro lose time. So the reason we prefer Japanese voices, by the way, is because at the start of battles, characters like to say like a voice line, and the battle doesn't quite start until the voice line's over. And Olbrich has some really long English voice lines, and Hana has some really long. Well, got it backwards.
Yeah, I got it backwards.
Hana has really long English lines, and Ulrich has really long Japanese lines. So we opt into Japanese. I don't think we ever timed out exactly which one's faster, but in general, Japanese tends to be a little bit faster than English.
Japanese is definitely faster for Galdera. The time loss from that one line that Hanet has in English that's super duper long, like, outweighs all the time loss you get from Ulbrich's slightly longer Japanese lines.
Yeah, Albrecht has only like one kind of bad Japanese line, but set on all bosses. But Honda just loses you a lot more time overall than Albrecht does, so it's just faster to stick with Japanese.
Well, something we haven't really mentioned yet, but I might have noticed we teleported a little bit from Grandport to Cobblestone. This game has fast travel. The way it works is once you visited a town, like this applies to town specifically, not like dungeons and stuff, you can fast travel to a town at any time. That includes out of dungeons too. So instead of having to like run into a dungeon, get stuff, and run back out, which we wouldn't be able to do most of the time because of step counter, we'd just get into a battle and die. We can just fast travel out. The route heavily takes advantage of that. We try to route all our like exploration and fast travels in a way that saves as much time as possible.
Yeah, so we did the first section in Grandport to get resources that we want to for the rest of this exploration section. So we're gonna pick up characters, and then we're also gonna need some money to purchase stuff. Speaking of which, did we explain what we picked up in Grandport?
No.
We haven't. So we picked up nuts. So we picked up some nuts and money and lots of pomegranates. So pomegranates give you a BP boost based on the size. So small gives you 1, medium gives you 2, large gives you 4. It'll be useful throughout the speedrun. We also grab a bunch of nuts, different types of nuts, which increase your character's base stats. So it's very, very important that we buy those, since where the damage ranges and HP ranges, etc., is quite tight.
We also picked up a few money items from chests, and some chests with money, some chests with money items, and I think 2 chests with soulstones, soulstone larges specifically, which are very valuable because, like I said earlier, soulstones don't scale off of levels or anything. Base damage, and large soulstones do pretty damn good damage for early game. We'll be using them to clear battles a lot, mostly like bosses, but also even just random enemies that we encounter. As it'll be much faster to clear them with soulstones than it would be to like actually fight them with our characters when we're still weak.
Yeah, we also need a ton of money because we're not only going to buy like a lot of equipment, we're going to be a pain to win. So sorry for those people who don't like pay to win games. This is
unfortunately
Octopath
is pretty pay to win.
On this Galdera, no hired help %.
Oh my gosh. No. I struggle to even think about that.
Oh yeah, that seems.
I'm good.
But we've seen a little bit of hired help, but we haven't seen everything yet. We haven't seen the the most expensive hired help use yet. That one will be carrying us throughout like the first hour and a half of the game. We'll see it with our first chapter 2 boss soon enough.
Yeah,
Speaking
since
of
it's a
chapter 2,
full. You can go
ahead.
ahead.
Alright, speaking of chapter 2, we started Trustless chapter 2 right there. The way chapter's working is start a character's chapter after we've completed the previous one. The reason we start Trustless chapter 2 there, even though we don't intend on finishing it right now, is because we never want to go back into the right side of town later on anyway. We just want to go in there early and loot everything. And instead of running back out to the center of town where we continue her chapter, we want to fast travel out. We can set that up nicely here. Fast travel Stone Guard and get some other stuff down here in the meantime. That's where a lot of the fast travel routing comes in. I purposely like do it to minimize movement and screen transitions. Screen transitions are also slower when you're walking because you get the autosave. When you fast travel, you don't autosave, so it's a little bit faster. And the route just like plays around with that a ton to just like squeeze out seconds here and there as much as we can.
Yeah, it's really nice. I really like how all the fast travels routed in. Makes the route a lot more stylish.
Yeah, it's we don't like walking unnecessarily. We just like our very fancy teleports.
Yeah.
I also totally forgot what meant to talk about earlier.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Because we were talking about something before you mentioned chapter 2. I totally forgot.
We were talking about money routes, hired help. What else? Allstones? I'm trying to like jog Sanjin's memory right now.
Maybe what we were gonna purchase in Fairy Quest and Stoneguard.
Yeah, I can do that. So we also purchased a couple soulstones there to be able to handle encounters, and we bought a Curious Bloom because you'll understand later why. But Curious Blooms would be very useful for a very certain character that we'll be getting later on.
Yeah. Curious Blooms are a secret OP item with a secret OP character that you probably would never realize when you first play casually, but they are incredibly good.
Very good.
I can't wait to show that part of the run off. It's very underrated, and like until you really explore the game, you won't realize how damn good it is. It's really strong. Right. We got our third character. Oh, go ahead.
We picked up Therion here. He's gonna be another really useful character, and he's gonna be another character that we're gonna keep with us for most of the time because he is his stories are level gated, unfortunately, which we will explain exactly why later. And he has a very useful support action that lets us loot purple chest. So no one else but Therion in your party can loot purple chests, and those purple chests normally will contain stuff that is extremely valuable.
Yeah, generally best treasure is in purple chests. Also, his path action is steal, which lets you steal items pretty self-explanatory instead of paying for them with Tressa. So whatever we can steal, we will steal to save money, and it's useful. You can also steal from enemies, but that's very rarely used in the run. Is it used at all actually anymore?
There's only one instance where we use it.
Yeah.
If you notice something we mentioned earlier, you notice that in Therion's chapter 1 dungeon, even though I transitioned to a different screen, I still got an encounter. That's because in the dungeons like these, which are man's type dungeons, going to a different screen doesn't actually reset your step counter. So that's why I still got the encounter, but fortunately, you can actually run from it, YOLO flee from it, but since I've M-stones, I can clear those out pretty easily and guarantee that I can just get out of the battle quickly.
A bit of bonus EXP JP too. With non-Kate route, Tressa is, I think it was donate BP and getting evasive maneuvers in Saintsbridge is a little bit tight if you don't kill a few things.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, if you get like really bad encounters, generally you won't be able to teach all of them. You'll be short some JP if you learn donate BP, so
yeah,
that's why.
I didn't actually teach it this run, although I think I might have been able to, but just for safety, I didn't teach donate BP. It only really saves you one pomegranate, like one small pomegranate, and if you're lucky you can save like a soulstone or two. It doesn't really, it's not like a game changer or anything getting donate BP there.
Yeah, it's more the menuing time save than anything else, just teaching it there lets you save time teaching it later. And you can get endless items early, which is merchant's like first support skill, which essentially when you have it equipped, you have a 25% chance of getting back any consumable item when you use it. So you can duplicate your soul stones or your palms, and that helps because then you don't have to get more of them, or you have extras you can burn to kill things even faster, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's a nice bonus that you can get, and we'll be trying to hopefully get some nice endless item procs later.
So we grabbed the Hunter Shrine here. The Hunter Shrine is going to be useful for a couple bosses, as well as the end game. So fun fact, we actually do not get all the shrines in this game. there's only one shrine that we skip, which is the Apothecary Shrine. So it used to be in the route, but we routed it so that, because before Apothecary Shrine was primarily used for the HP, but we don't need that anymore, so we routed that out. The shrine takes about 20, 25, 30 seconds to get.
Shoutouts to the Japanese runners of this game, Tepu and Kozupi specifically, because I think I stole that from Tepu, who got that from Kozupi, the Apothecary Shrine skip. That's where that came from. Some other really good route ideas and improvements have come from the Japanese community as well, so big shout out to them.
Yeah, Japanese community, really innovative and creative minds. And it's a shame that language barrier makes it a bit difficult to share ideas, but we do learn things from the Japanese runners as well, from time to time.
Yeah, nice little bit of collaboration. Sometimes intentional, sometimes not. Just everybody coming up with their own ideas and spotting them and stuff, because it is a little bit harder to share the language barrier. But routes have definitely been improved from both sides. And it's always really nice having a lot of people involved in a community and a game. It's you'll always get a better route and like a better run from that than you would doing it solo. Because collaboration is so useful.
Yeah, and it's really nice for a run like Galdera because it's so long and so complex that really having more minds innovate on the route really just makes the development of the category a lot faster. And I think we're at the point where we can't really imagine any conceivable huge route change in the future. I think the last route change was already made, last big route change. So from here on out, the route's probably mostly optimized, I would say, if I dare to say. Of course, like you can still find some small optimizations here and there, but in terms of like major route changes, I don't think we can make any more of those.
When I last ran this category, it was a little bit over a year ago, probably now. And since I've stopped running it, I think there's been one specific change to this route that's been reincorporated from the Cyrus round. That's early Haunted, which we'll get to at some point.
Yeah.
We also tried for Shield Skip, I think, at some point, but I think we switched back. I still don't know if it was better or not. I never liked the idea personally, but I know Quadra and Sangen ran with that for a little bit. Besides that, not much has changed in over a year, which is insane to me, because one of the coolest things about this game and running it is how open-ended it is. Like, once you get your first character, you can basically go anywhere you want, do whatever you want. Pick characters in any order you want. So it's like there are so many routing options, and for a route to not change in over a year, for the most part, with a game this open-ended is kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's really incredible. But it sort of makes sense for a category like Galdera, because even though it's long and it's kind of open, you are still kind of bound by having to, you know, beat the final boss. So there are certain things that you still have to do, certain equipment that you have to get. And for the most part, there is an established, quote-unquote, optimal way to get these items and do things. So Galdera not changing that much, it's a shame, but also not too big of a surprise for me. But there is actually another category, also another full game category that's a bit shorter than Galdera, called All Main Stories. Essentially, you just also complete all the character stories, except you don't have to beat Galdera. That one's a lot more subject to change, I think. There are a lot more variations in the routes at the moment.
Yeah, we've had some different routes born out of it, and that's where the Ophelia for the Galdera idea originally came from, because we primarily used to use Cyrus for both AMS and Galdera, but AMS kind of started out with Cyrus, and then thoughts about Prim were created, and then from there it kind of just cascaded to Galdera.
The thing about Galdera is that for final boss setup, you're kind of limited to wanting your main mage to be someone who has access to a staff. Yeah, the only characters that can do that are Ophelia and Cyrus. So your options are a bit more limited, because you need like a really good setup for Galdera. Well, for all main stories, it's not as difficult because the bosses aren't as like overpowered. So you have a lot more options. I think this at the moment I've seen like 5 different main characters used for all main stories. There's been Cyrus, of course. There's been Prim. Those are like the main 2. But there's also been Haunted. There's been Obrig, and I think there's been a Tressa route.
There's Alpin as well.
There's an Alpin one? Okay, 6 then. What are we missing? Ophi?
Elfie actually has a route made for it.
But you don't want to use it.
Jack has ran Ophi.
Nice.
I mean, you can't. I mean, it's a lot. You can't really use Ulfi very well in all main stories because, for example, Lucia's quite a bit more restricted. So, and you have to take the slower fight for Lucia, whereas Ulfi, you're not as restricted in a different way in Galdi. So that's why she's a lot more consistent.
Yeah, we really take advantage of literally like all the most powerful equipment, all the OP skills that you can get in this game, and really gonna make very short work of a lot of bosses that normally in casual playthrough people might find very difficult. So do keep a lookout for that, and we will try to explain to the best of our abilities our setups and everything. And
I just want to see over it. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was actually just gonna say that we're nearing the end of the exploration section, where we are just going around and picking up items and stuff. So right after this, we'll be starting to pick up characters, and actually from then on, it'll be mostly kind of just full steam ahead.
Yeah, this first 40 minutes or so is just a lot of rounding up items and tagging places, and hoping you don't get encounters on the way. And then after that is when the real game starts.
Yeah, sort of interrupted Sanjan there, who was probably about to make a disclaimer that Ulbricht's the best AMS sorcerer.
I still stand by that.
I actually think it's not bad. If he had more SP, he'd be like actually legit, really legit.
With a double win, is it the double win strat?
You actually get a special weapon. You can actually have access to a special weapon called the Rune Glade that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that he could get...
Gives him more attack, and then you can skip some places, but one day Ulrich will have his reign.
Also, swords have pretty good speed buffing equipment. We'll actually be making use of that later. So, certain weapons have like certain extra effects, like extra mental attack, physical attack, speed, skill, actually, yeah, stuff like that. And the way that speed works in this game in terms of weapons is that only a character's main weapon will apply the bonus speed. So for Tressa, say, it would have to be a spear because that's her main weapon. And I think there are no speed boosting spears actually.
I think there is one, but it's not very good.
Shame. Plus, you kind of like spears actually have pretty good magic for the most part, so you wouldn't want to give that up. For Ulbrich, it's a sword, and sword actually has a lot of really good speed boosting swords. And then there's like daggers, blah blah blah, all sorts of stuff. But since it's the main weapon, also for Haunted, bows, for example, that's her main weapon. There isn't really any good speed boosting bows. That's one of the downsides of like a Haunted route. But Ulbrich doesn't have that issue, which is kind of neat. Also nice, we made it through Everbeam tunnels.
Yeah, this screen.
That's no problem.
Maybe someone could explain what I'm doing at the end here.
Yeah, so you'll see that he ran to like the little optional boss indicator, like, do you want to face this boss, yes or no? When we press no, it actually resets the step counter, so that's why he's able to like run through this entire area back and forth, grabbing each of the chests that you're going to see here without getting an encounter. The only dangerous part, for the most part, is just getting to that prompt, because you have some of the lowest chance of getting an encounter, but it's really annoying if you get an encounter there, because most of the time you're not going to survive.
Yeah, but
there's very few you can kill. And it's like, no, if you don't get ambushed too, and you're getting ambushed the majority of the time there.
Yeah, but the reason why we have to go to Everhold, or we like to call it Evermean tunnels, is that certain very important weapons that we have to pick up there, which I'll let the others explain, because I'm gonna have to pick up Ophelia here.
So there's 3 main chests that we get in Neverhold Tunnels. There's a chest of money, which is nice, but not essential. That can be gotten elsewhere. The 2 weapons that we pick up in there are Death Cleaver and a Knowledge Staff. The Knowledge Staff specifically is incredibly important. It's a staff that gives 333 elemental attack and I think 99 speed, and I could be off on the speed.
99 I think sounds about right.
Okay, nice. I remember things. Good. Yeah, 333 elemental attack is huge. For a frame of reference, the max a stack can go in this game outside of HP is 999. So it's 1/3 of max of possible elemental attack. It's like one of the... I think it's the second best staff, might be 3rd best staff. I don't remember exactly. It's like 3rd best elemental attack staff in the game. And the speed is really useful as well, because our mages will generally be responsible for clearing out random battles, and you kind of want them going fast for that. Since we can reach a certain point where they could just like one-shot enemy groups. And then the other one is Death Cleaver, which isn't as important, but it is definitely important. It's used in some boss fights for some additional damage with Alphen in a bit. And it has a very special use in the final boss fight, pretty much. Besides that, it's like, you could route around it, but it is definitely very helpful.
It pretty much helps you save on soul stones, because amputate with the Death Cleaver does quite a decent amount of damage, surprisingly.
Yeah, it's a really nice additional source of secondary, like, single target damage.
Yeah, and it's kind of just there, so why not just pick it up? It's really easy to get.
It costs like an additional 15 seconds at that point. Everhold Tunnels actually takes a humongous amount of time to go to, but it's just like, it's worth it. But by the time you get everything else, Death Cleaver, it costs very little to get. It's the initial trip through and 2 tunnels that cost a lot. Now we got Ophelia, best girl. So this is Ophelia chapter 1.
What I hear?
I had to do that after you mentioned that for Tressa at the start. Sorry. But this is actually one of the tankier chapter 1 bosses. I think only Gisarma ends up tankier. So it's actually a 2-turn fight. We can't just do Soul Stones, but we also have good Scholar gear at this point. But we actually only use an M Soul Stone, and then Cyrus does most of the work right there. And you can see what he does with some BP and some good Scholar equipment. 6k right there. And
yeah, we temporarily gave him some our Scholar gear, because we want to use we can use Soul Stone technically for this fight, but it's just a lot better to save on Soul Stones and just use Cyrus with the Scholar, fully boosted Scholar skills to deal some nice damage. And so now, right after we grab Ophelia, now we're gonna grab Alphen.
Best boy.
I can agree with that.
The one thing that people usually disagree on who the best girl is, but we can all agree that the best boy is definitely Alphen. And
sorry, I still stand by Cyrus being best boy.
Yeah, I thought you might. So also, this is a cute little thing. I think this is the only time we kick Therion out of our party for pretty much the rest of the run. I don't know if you do something with him for early Haunted, but I don't think you do. Right?
Oh, we kick Tressa out for early Haunted.
Therion goes out of the party for just a tiny bit before we start Haunted Chapter 2. So like when we're getting the Captain's Patch.
Okay, so yeah, he's just in there most of the time. But I think when I routed this, it was like the only time you kick him out.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of the big benefits of Ophelia route, in that you can get Alphen earlier and use it more. So you generally want to have Tressa and Therion in your party at all times. Tressa just because she's with you a lot, and for early game you need hired help, and later on she's just like racked up so much JP and stuff that she's massive utility. Therion, you want him to reach a certain level threshold before a certain point, that he'll have a big role to play for the final boss. And then we have our sorcerer or / scholar, our mage, who will be doing damage. That's generally Cyrus or Ophelia. That's 3 characters right there. But for reasons we'll go into later, we want to do Ophelia chapters right after this, so Ophelia's stuck in our party anyway. So if Cyrus is our main mage, that's our 4-character party right there. We have Tressa, Therion, Ophelia, and Cyrus. So we can't have anyone else. But with Ophelia as our main mage, we can actually kick Cyrus out for a good while. And that gives us one more party slot which we can put Alphen in, and Alphen is very useful. This is probably the biggest differentiation in the early game between the Cyrus and the Ophelia route, having Alphen available here instead of keeping Cyrus and Ophelia in.
Yeah, we'll try to point out some of the differences in the fights where Alphen does make a difference.
Yeah, Alphen's quite a bit more beefier and can pretty much do the same things that Cyrus can, so... Which is a lot more convenient when it comes to like equipment routing, because Cyrus generally acquires more equipment routing since he's squishier and has a lot less HP. You also notice he bought an Essence of Pomegranate. Went out of the way to buy it. It's going to be a really, really nice item for a little bit later, but he won't be. It's probably you'll see it later, but it's probably like one of the most overpowered Canucks that you can use.
Yeah.
Don't call it the essence of Pog for nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, you already know that pomegranates give you BP, so the essence of pomegranate is just a concoct material version of pomegranates, and if you might infer, the essence of pomegranate concocts allow you to restore BP to your party, and some of the concocts are really strong. You're going to be able to see it later. But for now, we're just going to do Ophelia Chapter 2. There's a very good reason why we want to rush Ophelia chapters first, and I'll let the others explain while I try to get Cyrus to do his job here. That's the last thing we need Cyrus to do.
Yeah,
if you don't
so-
mind, I want to backtrack a tiny bit first. We never explained what concoct is.
Oh, yeah. That's probably good to explain. Go ahead.
So concoct is Alphen's unique like combat ability, and essentially with some combined ingredients, herbs, to do special effects. So it's two parts. There's like seeds and dusts, and those are generally used for targeting. It's like seeds are single target and dusts are multi-target. And then there's like positive, like your party, which is like soothing and purifying being the stronger one. And there's
Nice, first try. Let's go, Cyrus.
Nice,
Sorry,
try.
I just had to interrupt you for a bit there.
Oh, good. Cyrus first try.
Yeah, always want to see
It's
that.
like honestly the worst RNG part of like this part of the run left over after exploration. So it's really nice to get that first try. Wait, where was I? So Injurious and Ruinous lets you do like stuff on enemies, and then the second material determines the effect. So like Essence of Palm, as Quadra explained, lets you give BP. And there's like healing with Essence of Grape, there's restorative effects. Curious Blooms all have unique effects, which is why they're really cool. We'll go into those later. And then for Injurious, you basically get a like very small elemental damage and possible status infliction, which we use to hit weaknesses later parts of the run. Oh, very good. And
Yeah, so-
I forgot. Go ahead, Sanjay. I was about to say, continue what you were saying earlier.
No, I just want to interject saying now that we're pretty much going to kick Cyrus out for a good while here, and now Ophelia will be our main mage. You see here in this menu, we gave Ophelia a lot of the magic nuts, as well as HP nuts, since right now Ophelia is not that beefy. So we gave her some extra tankiness, and we also gave Tressa evasive maneuvers, since our other evasive maneuvers user got kicked out. Sorry, Cyrus. So now we can pretty much start on their process here of leveling. So the nice convenient part about Ophelia's chapters is not only is it short, or relatively short, and the bosses are easy, we actually gain a decent amount of levels, since most of her areas are kind of long to go through, so we'll certainly going to be getting an encounter here.
But our best friend is Salamander here. Fortunately, we didn't get ambushed by it because it has an AoE attack, which can be very annoying to deal with if you get ambushed.
There's also one enemy here called the Cringe Chameleon, who is just
Oh
awful.
my
We
God.
never want to see him.
5%.
Like-
I think it's a 3 or 5% chance to get it, but when you get it, you're really cringy.
Yeah.
It's like he only has one weakness with free shields. He's weak to axe. Alphen's the only one that has axe. I guess Tressa hired help as well at this point. But Alpha doesn't really have the accuracy to hit him. He has like 4,000 HP or something, whereas the second highest enemy HP in this area is a Salamander, which is like 1670 or something. For comparison. So it's quite a notable difference there.
Take this.
And then he
Yeah,
actually hurts. He can like one-shot you. One-shot each like, characters individually.
Things you can't finish.
Yeah, it's not a very good time when you get the Cringe Chameleon, but yeah, thankfully we didn't get it. And yeah, you're also guaranteed an encounter in here, which we'll take. And we'll just kill it quickly with a Soulstone here, and then we're off to this next boss, and you're about to see why pay to win is the name of the game.
Our Soulstones, by the way, kill every encounter in this area, which is lovely. That's not true for all
I see
areas.
defenses.
It just one-shots everything here, and if you don't get ambushed, that's like ideal. You just insta one action kill.
So we're gonna cast Iron Corrosive here for increased physical damage, which Hired Help Veterans uses, and then we're gonna break our little doggo here, and you're just gonna wave goodbye to doggo. We're just gonna do a couple extra damage here because the doggo has actually a decent amount of HP. And yeah, you just saw those vets deal like quite a bit of damage.
I mentioned earlier that hired help is not based off our stats at all, so which is really good early game because they'll do the same damage all the time. It does care about the enemy stats, so armor corrosive debumping the enemy's armor actually does increase our hired help damage. Breaking them increases the hired help damage, and that's essentially what we'll be abusing throughout like the whole early mid game. You're gonna be debuffing and doing hired help, and just nuke stuff constantly.
Yeah, okay, so coming up is the reason why we needed Cyrus to really hit that scrutinize. Basically, that scrutinize gives us items, extra items in this shop. And these items are really important. They increase your maximum HP. I'm gonna do this menu.
Sadly, defensive stats aren't as good in this game as flat HP. I think like the reduction from having extra armor or elemental defense is like linear, so it's like you have 50 more armor, you take like roughly 50 less damage. It's not exactly linear, but somewhat close. But HP, it's like if it's like that, might as well just have HP, which is the same for both elemental and physical. And then generally on top of that, the HP boosting items generally give you a lot more. The items we just bought there were empowering bracelets. That's what we needed Cyrus to unlock. Those getting our accessories that give you 500 HP. So now our characters are actually somewhat tanky despite our low levels because that's quite an amount of HP. It's like essentially doubling a lot of our characters' HP at this point.
Yeah, and right after Ophelia 2, it's straight into Ophelia 3. We kind of got sidetracked a bit because we had a lot to explain before Ophelia 2, but the main reason why we want to rush Ophelia chapters is because finishing Ophelia Chapter 4 unlocks a post-game item called the Friendship Badge, which is super duper important to get early, and I'll let the others explain why it's so important.
Yeah, so the badge gives you 1.5 times the amount of JP gained, and we are very, very JP hungry because there's going to be a lot of things that we want to get, especially to do the most as much damage as we can. Then thankfully, Ophelia's chapters are pretty easy, and we can pretty much once we get that, we can start doing the big bosses, and those bosses will give us a ton of JP.
Yeah, there are a lot of skills that we have to learn in this run, and we don't have enough JP to learn those skills if we just kill bosses. Even with the Friendship Badge, if we just kill bosses, we don't have enough JP. We're gonna have to take extra encounters in. So you can see really the value of having that extra 1.5 times JP, and we'll even unlock more skills later that give us even more JP. So you can see why these are so important. Just being able to cut the number of encounters that you have to take so that you can get all your powerful skills as soon as possible.
Yeah, since this is a full game category, as much as we want to pay to win only takes us so far because we can't feasibly raise thousands of dollars for all the vets that we use, since there's going to be a lot of bosses to kill. So the next step up is magic, and magic in this game is extremely powerful. Oh, that's a nice surprise.
Yeah, speaking of killing encounters, this encounter we all pretty much always kill because it's always the same encounter here.
It's really easy to clear. 2 bandits, hired help, will just break it always, and then you get with magic or soul stone. It's pretty straightforward. Speaking of, I do want to mention this trip. So we're going to Northreach right now. It's Ferion's Chapter 4 town. And the reason we do it now is, first of all, like during that part of Ophelia 3 where we have to go to the church, it's faster to fast travel out somewhere because running back to where we need to go would take like 10-15 seconds longer. Additionally, we used to actually go to... Wow, I got an ad, great. I can't see anymore. What was I saying? So we used to go to Northreach later in the run after we fought Dracing, but one of the things I want to try when I routed Ophelia is getting this earlier. And the main benefit of getting this earlier is that we can buy the Empowering Necklace early. The Empowering Necklace is a plus HP item, just like the bracelets we bought earlier, but it's for 1000 HP. So having earlier access to that essentially means we can cut out some bracelets earlier. We only bought 5 before. Now with this, we have a lot more HP and we don't need the bracelets as much early. And then we can also get this magic L nut here from this NPC, which is a big buff to a character's elemental attack we ever use it on, and some gold items we can sell for money. The one trade-off to doing that is that you do the fight without Badge of Friendship. If you did it like how we did in the old route after Dracing, we would have Badge of Friendship on. We end up losing a little bit of JP overall by doing it now, but the trade-offs are worth it.
Okay, so coming up we got 2 screens. This one's kind of cursed. You don't have to take the encounter here, but you do get it quite a fair bit of the time. Good thing I didn't get it here. But the encounter inside you usually just always take because the screen's super long, and even if you do a save and quit inside, you can still get an encounter. So I'm gonna take the encounter here.
You actually want the JP anyways, because levels do... Technically you could do this at lower level, certain things at lower levels, but JP does quite matter a decent bit because the JP rounding is actually in this counter is actually pretty tight in certain places.
Oh, really nice.
Encounter here.
I got pretty much the fastest encounter here, which you can just clear with 1 soulstone. The light soulstone is pretty valuable. You kind of want it for Ophelia Chapter 4 because you can clear some encounters there pretty easily as well. So I had to use it, but I got a very nice endless item proc from Alpha.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that really helped out.
Yeah, the other valuable soulstone here is a Lindell for certain encounters because there's elementals which are dangerous because they hit for a lot of damage.
They hit hard and they hit AoE. Not always, it's a random attack they do. They have single target AoE, but the AoE attack, like 2 of them will basically kill your whole party. And they come with like usually at least 2 of the elementals, so if you get ambushed and get unlucky, you could just wipe here. And there will be like nothing you can do about it.
So this is Mystery Man and Shady Figure. I'm gonna say hi to them and then bye to them in a little bit. They have much lower HP than a normal Chapter 3 boss since there are 2 bosses. There's 2 bosses that you face, so basically a full set of vets, and then some extra damage from Ophelia takes care of them.
So one interesting thing is that without the magic L nut that we got in Northreach, it's actually arranged to kill these 2 dudes. And sometimes you have to use... Yeah, sometimes you have to use an extra soul stone or whatever. But with the magic L... Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say in previous routes before we went to Northreach early, since you don't have that EXP JP earlier, you would never get the kill. It wouldn't even be a range.
Yeah, actually, something very interesting that happened recently in one of my runs is that even with the magic L, I did miss a range.
Oh wow, really?
Really, really interesting. I must have low rolled every single thing. But
it's possible to low roll big time or like be under leveled. Like if you're under leveled, it does matter.
But in general, in general, with the magic L, you always kill them.
Which, speaking of levels actually do matter for couple different reasons. One is you get more HP, of course, but 2, there's also a hidden damage multiplier that increases every time you level up. So a level 1 character with like the same elemental attack won't be doing as much damage as like a level 30 character with the same elemental attack. I think the modifier goes from like 1 times to like 1.5 times. I can't remember the exact number, but there's a hidden multiplier.
Yeah.
That increases every time you level up, and that actually factors in quite a bit to how we approach bosses.
Yeah, later on we're gonna really have to pay attention to our XP, not just our JP, but also our XP, because we're gonna need that for damage. And the damage is really tight on the final boss. So we're gonna need all the levels that we can get.
Yeah, so we're gonna actually do a bit of a detour before going to Ophi's Chapter 4. We're gonna do this quest here because for Galdera, completing Kit's quest is actually required to be able to get Galdi, so we just take a bit of a detour while we're also starting Therion to start that quest and guide the aspiring actor, and then we're going to take another detour and head over to Dust Barrel because there's some nice money and items that we can get there.
If we go back on the damage thing, I was curious, so I looked it up. The level 1 multiplier is 50.56, and the level 99 multiplier is 1.4. So it's like almost triple damage between 1 and 99. Significant.
I never looked it up.
Thanks for looking it up for curse my short memory.
I just know that more levels equals more damage.
Yeah, I was curious too because I remembered it, but I didn't remember how much it scaled. Like, it's pretty significant, but it's still like it's nice balance. It's not like huge, but it definitely is noticeable.
Sometimes in this route, it actually does come into play where you're under level for some bosses, and then you actually deal low enough. The slight damage decrease that you get from being one level lower actually makes the bosses a range. And sometimes if you're over leveled, you can actually do slightly different strats. Or skip.
I do want to mention
things. I don't know.
that I think the bigger danger in being underleveled is not you not killing the enemies, but the enemies killing you.
Yeah.
The way we route our equipment is like, and like nuts and usage of like all our stats is very precise. And generally geared up just enough to survive like anything a boss can do for each character. Not always, sadly. But we want to try to like reduce our odds of characters dying as much as possible. And for the most part, it's like maybe if you get really unlucky, one character can die per fight with how well it's routed now. But if you're underleveled, that might not be true anymore, and characters that would normally survive attacks from bosses might start dying. At that point, you just gotta start improvising backups, because there's no fights where we assume character dies. We assume everyone always lives.
One nice detail that I like about the route is that completing the second part of Kid's Quest actually puts you outside of Noble Court, so you can go to Ophelia Chapter 4 town from there. Go ahead, Zero. I noticed you were about to say something.
It's really nice pathing. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh no.
I was gonna say that the fights were generally like in this run. For the most part, fights were generally very scripted. But having to go like off book when a character dies was actually very challenging.
Super
And probably one of the
ponderous.
most like skill-based things in the speed run. Honestly, being able to quickly improvise when something goes really off the rails.
But a super
What
good
do you
encounter
mean?
here. Basically, I was able to break the drakes before they did anything. It's
What do you
not something
mean
you see
skill?
every day because stress is usually quite slow. Sorry, Sanjay.
Now I was gonna say, I was gonna interject. Steals and scrutinizers are also skill based
Oh,
/S.
yeah. There's certain skill steals that you have to hit, and if your luck stat is not pumped high enough, then you might not get them.
Thankfully, it's not bad here, especially with this route. But in some other routes, Cough Therion single story, it's really bad.
Yeah. Luckily, this isn't Therion single story. Although it could sometimes look like Therion single story if you're really unlucky.
Yeah, actually has happened to me a few times.
Also, fun
towards
fact,
the-
I've like tried in my head to route out Hunter Shrine, and that battle right there, the quadrant is cleared, is one of the biggest reasons it's like not that good. It's still like you can manage that, but there's other reasons that ends up making it not faster.
Actually,
That's, like,
the
it's
current
actually one of the least used shrines, I think.
Galdi glitch route, which, well, there's a couple glitches, but we don't use them here. But the current Galdi glitch route actually skips Hunter Shrine, Thief Shrine, and Apothecary Shrine.
Nice. I'm not as familiar with that route, but I like shrine skips. That makes me happy.
Thief Shrine
I've
skip
also
is
eventually
just-
tried Thief Shrine in this. I like
Thief Shrine skip is just nice because I hate the Thief Shrine encounter.
Yeah. That one's just really frustrating. And it feels like so unnecessary. It's like you need it for, well, a lot of the shrines we get and jobs we get are needed for so few things, but those few things are essential enough that it doesn't make sense to skip them, which is a little bit frustrating. It's so close to being skippable, but it never quite is.
You're playing in English, right? You gotta play the good text. Since we're on Ophelia.
Oh, you're
4.
right. You're right.
Do it for the content. The runners had to, or I mean, not the runners. The viewers have to witness this great voice acting.
I completely agree. This needs to be done.
Yeah. So, anyways,
got-
we're gonna learn a couple skills here. So we got Hail and Hardy on Alphen, and we also got Grows on Trees, which increases the money that you gain from encounters by 10%. That actually matters quite a bit because every little bit of money matters.
It adds up to like 20,000-30,000, I think, over the course of the time you have it equipped. It does end up being pretty significant.
We also want to optimize our equipment minis so that everyone can survive hits from the final boss. So now everyone except for Therion is pretty much geared to survive one attack from,
Okay, got 2
or
Curious
both
Wounds.
attacks from
Yeah.
the final boss, or the final boss of Ophelia's chapter.
The way it works, we set up the equipment so everybody can take 2 hits, which is max he'll do in a standard fight. With the exception of Therion. With Therion, well, so the next boss has 2 attacks he can do. He has Consuming Darkness, I believe, and a normal physical attack. What you want for him to do is Consuming Darkness first, because at that point the fight's won. Because we also gave Trust a cover here, I believe. And what cover does is if a character is like low HP and an enemy attacks them, the character with cover will protect them. So if Matthias does Consuming Darkness first on Therion, for example, brings him down to low HP, and then tries to do a physical attack on him, then Trust will protect him, and they won't die, and everything will be good.
No, you don't.
Actually, Alphin's the one that gets cover for a majority of this,
Favorite correct.
since he
I don't remember.
deals, or since he like, is a warrior for
Yeah,
quite a
because
bit.
he
But
gets warrior skills for surpass summoning strength for racing.
we give Trust a warrior just for more HP because sub jobs actually give you some base sub stats.
It does get cover at some point eventually. Like,
Yeah, towards the end of the run.
Yeah.
Just for one fight.
Worth it. 100% worth it.
Yeah.
Oh no, you skipped the best
Oh, I
dialogue.
forgot.
No,
Oh,
not like
I'm
this.
sorry.
Exact.
I forgot.
Now the run's cursed.
Well then, no, you will not. What to do?
Yeah, this is actually the only final boss that has voice lines.
Bring it
Because
on.
there's
Darius
also
not
another
have
boss.
voice
Like
Like,
this.
no,
So he just has a text.
yeah.
Well then,
Oh, there. Speaking of, perfect example. He did Consuming Darkness on Therion, so you can see Therion is 250 HP right now, and if you try to physical attack him, then Alpin would protect him. But
Yeah, it's
this
pretty-
fight's actually
Let's get down to
good.
work. The best
This fight's pretty straightforward. You pretty much break him, and you deal a lot of vets. You throw a lot of
here.
vets, aka pay to win, on him, and you basically win.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's 4 vets plus some extra damage with OP.
The best
So one fun fact, the way you boost your vets actually does matter. So you can boost your vets up to 2, 3, 4 times. Well, I guess not at all. And the way it worked out, I didn't realize this until I was like, I don't remember. I was writing this at some point, and I kept on missing the damage rate sometimes. And I couldn't figure out why. Turns out that doing 2 vets with 3 BP each does more damage than a vets with 2 BP and a vets with 4 BP by like 1,000. That's actually enough to get you the kill, whereas doing it with 2 and 4 would miss the kill. Driving me crazy for a little while, but that's a fun little detail that affects the fight.
I think from 4 vets to 3 vets, you lose generally around like 3,000 damage, and from 3 to 2, it's probably like another 2-3k damage.
I don't know. It's too much math for my meager brain. I just watched when I killed him and when I didn't.
Yeah,
That's why I
but
said rough
Matthias,
approximate.
Matthias is a pretty easy boss. And makes sense to rush him again for the friendship badge, which we'll be getting later. Gonna run some errands here. Nice little item that we picked up, Flying Helm. Maybe Zero could explain that.
Flying Hell, my favorite addition to this route. I love it. So, generally, Chapter 1 towns, they don't have good gear. But this little thing here, the Flying Helm, it's in the Chapter 1 town, and it's really unique in that it's one of 2 helmets in the game that give you bonus crit. The other one being a drop from a Chapter 3 boss. And for a boss coming up, it actually guarantees a crit that would normally not be guaranteed, and you need that crit to kill. So Flying Helm is actually huge for that fight. It makes the fight consistent. And it's such a random item. It's the only route I think for any category that gets it. I love it.
Yeah, so one thing that we haven't talked about much is crits. So crits in this game deal 1.25 times the amount of damage, which is nice because, you know, any extra damage does matter, especially when it comes to boss fights where the damage we deal tends to be a bit tight. Now, crit is the chances of you critting is based off 2 things. So the first thing it's based off is obviously your crit stat. The second thing it's based off is the enemy speed stat. So the higher an enemy speed, the less likely you are to crit it. And likewise, the higher your speed stat is, the less likely you are to get crit. Now, so amputation has a plus 100 critical stat modifier, which means that most of the time it's gonna crit on regular enemies. But this upcoming boss fight that we're gonna do, this boss, even though he's sitting on a chair and he's really old, for some reason he has a lot of speed, and so much speed that actually Elfin isn't guaranteed to crit him. That's why the Flying Helm there we pick up, just to guarantee the crit. Because, again, if you don't crit, it's ripped because the damage is so tight.
Yeah, in general, the damage for fights is routed incredibly tightly. We don't want to waste anything extra if we don't need to. And that's one of those times where without the crit, you don't kill. We even, like, have the precise amount of strength we need. If we cut out, like, any of our bonus strength stuff, we don't kill there, too. Which is an issue with some other routes, but in this route, it happens to work out fine. So it's really cool how that worked out to precisely get you the kill. To my knowledge, I don't think anyone's ever missed a kill there yet, and it's very tight, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I think theoretically you can miss the kill if you low roll every single hit of veterans, but you use like 6 veterans, so you have to low roll like 24 times to not kill.
Yeah, I actually checked it at some point. If you go through like the Discord, like a year and a half back, I think I actually put in the numbers for like total damage, and I think he killed by like 1,000 or so, roughly 1,000, 1,500. I don't remember if the equipment's changed a little bit since then, but it's really tight. Right, so here's the whole reason we did OP4 as early as possible. We want to get the Badge of Friendship, and this quest that gives us this doesn't unlock until we finish Ophelia 4. To do the quest, we need to get the River Blossom from that kid over there, and it's a really cheap purchase, but fun fact, it's a 3% steal, so
Yeah.
don't try to steal it.
Even though it's just a flower. Really funny though,
Yeah.
Tressa just purchases it, and the kid goes, "Hey, but that's my flower," and Tressa's just like, "Pleasure doing business with you."
Yeah, not anymore.
Hey, that kid is easily lured by money. I feel it.
I feel like it's just because it's a kid and doesn't know how this proper like money transaction thing works. So like it's like, oh, money, yay! And then you take the flower, but that's mine.
Speaking of the Thief Shrine encounter, which we talked about earlier, a disgusting encounter, which I hate, we got that one. So, the kind of icky thing about the Thief Shrine battle is, well, wait, I'm gonna have to do this menu first. Zero could probably explain it pretty well.
Oh, one of the icky things about this is that we don't have Badge of Friendship equipped yet, even though we got it, because we want to do the menu after we get the Thief Shrine, so we can do it all in one menu. So that's one of the really annoying things about it. You technically could have split it into 2 menus and gotten more JP, but you just assume you're not going to get that battle. And then it's just like not a particularly good battle in terms of EXP and like JP groves, and it generally takes a Soulstone to do quickly, which we want to conserve. Just all around, bad times.
Yeah, you also don't have certain abilities first, because like you're gonna see here they're on learn Evil Ward, which is gonna be a very nice skill because it gives us a much better increased chance of fleeing. And that encounter without Evil Ward, you generally can't flee from it.
Yeah, Evil Ward's the main thing. Like, I would, if I had Evil Ward there, I would 100% always skip that encounter if I get it. But because we don't have Evil Ward, I'm forced to take. Well, I'm not forced to, but it's better to just take the encounter.
I like how you like automatically assume that if you had Evil Ward, you would actually get the escape.
It's a better chance, that's for sure.
Well,
I think it's very likely because this is still like a level 2 area,
It's a
but I don't think it's
chapter 2
guaranteed.
Is
Yeah,
it
it's
not? I'm pretty sure it
I
is,
think
though.
it's
I've never
guaranteed.
I've never failed chapter 2.
I have a feeling it's guaranteed since it's a chapter 2 area. Now, chapter 4 and above area, since we're still low level, it's a better
Chapter
chance to
3.
escape, but
Yeah, chapter 3 and
Actually,
above.
like I assume escape rate is scaled off levels and stuff, right? Because that just makes sense thematically. It's like early game stuff that you can escape, and then late game stuff you can never
I think
escape.
it's scaled towards like your party's overall levels.
Yeah. So I assume that like if you're a lower level, even with Evil Ward, chapter 2 areas might not be safe, but it's like it's so rare to be in that situation. Like, that's the only chapter 2 area we go to until like before the next boss without Evil Ward. And like even with Evil Ward, we don't go anywhere else until like after the next boss, and that's like a big boost in the EXP and JP. So It's hard to say. We don't have enough data, or at least I don't.
Yeah, it's one of the
I
few
wanna-
things we don't really understand yet. The Evil War.
I wanted to also mention, normally we take that encounter in Orwell when we first got there, but since Quadra got a decent amount of extra encounters, he opted to skip it. So this is so Galdera is kind of complex, especially when you play at a very high level, because you have to be constantly thinking about your JP and EXP route.
You want to manage it so essentially throughout the course of the run, you take the smallest amount of battles possible with the fastest battles possible. But at the same time, you never know what you can get like later on. So it's like there's a balance to it, and it's a big skill in running category.
So we
Also,
grabbed our last couple items here. We now tagged Riverford and grabbed some newer shells for Wolfie and Tressa, and now our preparation is pretty much complete, and now we can go beat up a big bad old man in a chair.
Gandalf. Can beat up Gandalf. A budget Gandalf at 0 calls him.
I was one of those. Somebody else named that one, I think. The
Yeah.
split rename. Shadow Point thing.
I think I don't know if it's me or someone else, but I usually sometimes use budget Gandalf.
It's a good one. I like that one. I think I had a fun icon to go with it, but I don't remember what it was. I'd have to open my splits.
Was it the "you shall not pass" portion of it?
I think so, yeah. Alright, so now we're entering Shrine to Archmage. This is the scary, like the highest level area we've been to so far in the run. Are gonna take an encounter in here just because it trips too long to avoid it, and it's good EXP and JP. And then we've got like the first really hard, well, quote-unquote hard boss fight of the run, which is racing. So this is a secret job shrine, and essentially the way this works is it's a shrine where you unlock another job. It's one of the ones that doesn't come pre-equipped on a character. They're unique, and you can only get them by doing these shrines. But to get them, you have to fight a boss, and the bosses are generally some of the hardest enemies in the game. I'd say top 10, like for each of the shrines, hardest boss fights in the run, like in the whole game. And Racing actually is one of the easier ones, funnily enough, because its patterns are really consistent. So unless there's a mistake somewhere, the way we have it routed, it's a guaranteed win. It still does take execution to execute properly.
Yeah, thankfully Dracing is entirely scripted, since he has a generally base set of attacks and he only gets like 2 attacks off. But it's still scary, especially for new runners, because you have to do the fight. Like, you have to execute all the steps in the fight pretty much perfectly, and if you make one mistake in this fight, it's generally over.
And this fight's a little bit harder because there's some interesting BP healing management you need to do, or at least you want to do if you want to optimize your resource usage. And that part is a little bit improv based off turn order and who Dracing targets with his one attack on turn 1. It's a bit of a harder strat.
Get the point? It's Alpin's voice line for Spearhead. I love it.
Thankfully, Alpin got hit. The only person where you'd have to be concerned if they got hit for
Oh, wow,
the
that's a lot of
initial
hits.
attack is Therion.
That's nice. If we have the worst version of the fight, Quadra would have had to use a revitalizing gem here, which is really bad because that is a incredibly useful item for a different boss fight later on, and it would really hurt to have to use it here. So it's nice that it doesn't have to worry about that. But so this fight's fairly scripted. I forget exactly how it goes. It's been so long. Essentially, we want to kill this fight with 6 vets and some extra damage on top. You want to do it in 6 turns, and we want to collect them for money. So we haven't really collected any fights in this run yet, but collect is a merchant ability that lets you steal money off of enemies. The way it works is that you still double what the boss drops or the enemy drops. And Racing by base gives you 20,000, so that's 40,000. We also gave Tressa a support skill called Snatch, which doubles the steals from steal and collect. So it becomes a 80,000 base steal fight. And that is a huge amount of money. That's essentially paying for our vets in this fight. We're paying for almost half of our vets in this fight by collecting from this fight. It's quite humorous.
Yeah, we use 180,000 leaves in this fight, which is quite a bit, and pretty much Snatch gives us just enough money to be able to afford that. And you're also going to see the most overpowered Canuck in the game, so Quadra's going to use Purifying Dust plus Essence of Pog, which gives everyone in our party 2 BP. That's a free palm M to everyone, just like that.
1 axe And pomegranates, normal items, they can only be used on one person ever, so being able to do an AoE one is huge. And that's why Alphen is so incredibly good. You can do stuff like this. Now everybody can have like one more really big hit quickly. Makes this fight possible with 6 vets and in 6 turns.
Yeah, the fight used to be longer and we used to pick up some extra items. Maybe someone else could explain it, because I'm not super familiar with it.
I can explain it. So the fight used to be 7 turns with 7 vets. The reason it was 7 turns is because we needed a little bit more time to set up. So what we would do is we would essentially tank one more turn of attacks from Dracing while we set up. And the next turn, before, like, let's say a quadrant didn't break him that second time that turn, he would have done Ignis Ardere and into Saltaire. It took me a second to remember the name, which are like the fire and wind sorcerer spells. He does have a set pattern. He will always do those 2 spells on those turns. What we used to do is we would pick up Tempest Amulets, which and Wind Amulets, which reduce the amount of wind damage we would take. And we would use High House Armor, which just slightly reduces fire damage. And we would use those pieces of equipment and accessories to tank through that turn. And it got us 1 more turn to set up. But we figured out with Alphen we can break earlier. And, well, not just Alphen. There's a lot that went into it. We essentially figured out we can break him earlier to not have to do that. And then we could skip all those items, which saves time. And we also figured out better damage setups to be able to do it in 6 turns using the Concoct of Alphen there, using Essence of Palm. So the fight before used to take more resources and it used to be longer, and we had to pick up extra gear, but now it's nice.
Yeah, some of the extra gear you have to pick up is the Tempest and Wind Amulets to be able to survive those. But now we don't have to grab them. Shoutouts to the Japanese runners, by the way, who kind of pioneered that strat.
Yeah, was it Kozupi? I think it might have been Kozupi who...
I believe so.
It's actually funny, both the English and Japanese communities kind of worked on Dracing at the same time. I found the 7-turn fight to cut out of veteran usage, so it became 7 turn 6 vets. And the Japanese runners cut out the heal, or like the Tempest Amulets and like taking the wind and fire attacks. So they reduced the turn, but they still had 7 vets. So they had 7 vets, 6 turns. I had 6 vets, 7 turns. And then we worked together to combine them into a 6 turn, 6 vet strat. And I think the current iteration of the strat is one that Tapu made. Shout out to Tapu. He made the current version of the strat, which is 6 vets, 6 turns, and it also does minimal job swapping. Or not minimal, but it sets up an optimal way. Where we keep OP Scholar and Alphen Warrior and all that. Whereas, like, I've had versions where I had, like, Tressa Hunter and stuff, or Alphen Hunter and OP Warrior, which required more menuing to set up afterwards.
So coming up as this first fight, we're going to see the power of Sorcerer. So we pretty much been through the phase where we use vet spam. We're only going to be using it, I believe, once more. And then we're basically done with vet. So we're going to use Elemental Break, which is the magical version of Armor Corrosive. So they're going to take more magic damage, and Zork spells are pretty overpowered because, as you see here, Opie's going to straight up do around 27k damage. Alright, yeah, 27k damage. And then we don't even need to throw money at it, or we just do this fire a couple spells, and yeah, there goes Omar.
The way the next few fights are going to go is essentially we're going to debuff the bosses with Elemental Break, which also is staff elemented or staff typed, and it can miss, but it can also knock off shields. That comes into play for some of our routing. It can no matter like only 1 fight in the run now, which is nice, but it's worth mentioning. And we're just going to do that. We're going to buff our Sorcerer OP with Donate BP and Peacock Strut, which is an elemental attack boost. And we're just going to nuke stuff, and we'll be doing that for a good while.
Yeah. Okay, so in this upcoming sections, you actually purchase or steal like 2 Curious Blooms. But since I got 2 extra bloom drops from an encounter just now, I'm gonna skip those. So just something to note. Kind of like just based off like the drops that you get from your encounters, you can save a bit of time here and there.
Definitely. Curious Bloom is one of the ones you will definitely look out for more, because the count actually does matter. You can actually end up at a point where you need to get extra if you get absolutely 0 drops and need the maximum amount. Because some fights you need like only 1 Curious Bloom sometimes, and sometimes you can skip it. I think there are some fights where you can actually potentially need 2. So it's something you definitely have to keep track of throughout the run.
Okay, so come.
Also,
Yeah, go ahead.
Go.
Sorry.
I was gonna say we were starting Trusted 3, but we made a quick transition here to Therion 2, and the reason we do that is because it's faster to teleport and teleport back than it is to run back out to the previous screen, as long as you do something useful with that extra teleport. So we do this this is another place where we do that, where we teleport somewhere else, do something we need to do, and then teleport back to what we were doing previously, save the movement time and screen transition time.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say that over there in Noble Court, that was the first 80% steal that we'll be doing with Therion, and he's gonna have to do a few 80% steals from now on, including a certain 55% steal later. But 80% steal, that's the magic number, and it's kind of funny because even though it's 80%, so you're quite likely to get it most of the times. Because Therion's the worst boy, he likes to miss these 80% steals a lot, and a lot of runners have expressed strong and intense irritation at Therion's lack of competency when it comes to hitting his 80% steals.
80% equals 10% sometimes.
Luckily nowadays the steals are in areas where we don't have to do any other path actions, or at least none that aren't guaranteed, so you still have full reputation, so you could fail it 5 times without losing too much time.
But you're telling me it's possible.
Oh yeah, definitely possible. I think
So-
the scariest one is Stone Guard with the 55% stones. Because the thing is, it's not just like these path actions that require reputation, or I guess it is path actions, but also to progress certain chapters, you also need to do path actions. And if you run out of reputation, you'll need to restore it just for like the chapters themselves, even if you give up on stealing the item. So you really don't want to run out of reputation in a lot of towns, especially if the tavern's far away, like say Stone Guard, where it would just be a humongous trip to restore it.
I am not made for such.
Also, something I want to mention about the elemental heavy armor. We haven't really talked about all the equipment we picked up. We bought a sorcerer's robe earlier. We generally want to get armor that boosts elemental attack, in terms of like offensive armor. And the best body armor for boosting elemental attack is sorcerer's robe, which gives you 50. But it's really expensive. It's like 35. And there's 2 available, but nowadays we only get 1. And then we replaced the second one we got before with elemental heavy armor, which gives like 40 something. It's almost just as good. Eventually we will be using 2 elemental characters, which is why we need it. But at some point the route used 2 sorcerer's robes. And that got routed out in one of my runs where I forgot to buy one. I showed up in Gate of Finis. I'm like, wait, I'm missing a sorcerer's robe. And then I did the whole thing anyway and it worked fine. So I was like, oh, okay, we don't need that anymore. They improved the route a ton.
My turn now. Break the
Yeah, the sorcerer roll costs about like 38,000, and this actually even before this, we actually used to use Winded Hills, which spoilers, we use War Master a lot, but we used to use Winded Hills, but now we only use Abers and another skill that you'll be seeing much later on, and that saves us a decent amount of money.
The War Master Divine skill, it uses all 6 weapons with the character to do damage, and the one we use now only uses 1, so it's essentially less weapons we have to collect for damage.
Yeah. And also the animation for Winhold's battle cry, it's extremely long. The plus side is it looks really cool and flashy. But the downside
Also does
is
more damage.
Yeah. Yeah, but the downside is it's kind of slow and you don't exactly need all that damage. We have ways to work around that.
Yeah, we just need like 1 extra skill now in like the one fight where this is relevant. By the way, it's only used in 1 fight, but it is incredibly relevant for that fight. Right, that was Trusted Chapter 3. Trusted Chapter 3 is pretty straightforward. Tiger fight, you just like nuke with OP. You do have a collect in there, and depending on how you turns one, sometimes it's a 99%.
I've never seen anyone miss it, but I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
If you don't talk about it, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
I think I've missed like 98% before, or maybe it was 95. I haven't done Trusted Single Story in ages.
I've
but
missed
that one
95%.
before.
Yeah, I've missed 95% before.
It's a fun way to lose a run.
Oh, I'm a bit low on money. It's fine. Just sell a bit more.
Oh, we're gonna do Trusted 4 now. We're also gonna buy that item right there. It's a really expensive item, but we needed to do a quest. That quest is required to finish that category. So just have to do it.
Technically, you can steal it, but it's 15%.
True.
And
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know you can steal it. I've always just purchased it.
If you actually steal it after this, after like in the little while, it's 55%. It loses you a couple seconds, but we have enough money usually to.
Oh, there we go. That's our first reputation. Thank you, Farion.
Oh, there goes
Think about,
Therion.
Scary thing about losing reputation in Grand Port. To restore reputation in Grand Port is the most expensive in the game. It
Yeah.
costs 100,000. So
Blow
you
up.
don't want to lose reputation.
It's gonna blow a hole in your pocket. But a good thing, I mean, if you somehow are unlucky enough to fail 80% steal in a row, you can just reload the autosave. And you'll
Technically, you
respawn
can
in
also
previous.
proceed without those stones, but you kind of
Yeah.
want the Shadow Soul Stone.
Shadows are really useful.
I think it was a 4. Well, I don't think we need reputation anymore in this chapter, right? So I guess you could just fail it and
You can just move
call
on.
it a day. Yeah. In some areas that's not an option, but I think that's the last time we use any path actions here, so you could just give it all 5 tries.
Hey, Force
I think I've
Shield.
gotten 4 kills before.
It's ready to
Time
do
for my favorite piece of armor that didn't get
do a
routed out.
menu here that will pretty much, we actually intentionally take off a not badge, but
Oh,
a
yeah.
bracelet on Therion to make him a little less taking, because we also want to manipulate cover HP for this next boss coming
Yeah,
up.
that's
and-
one of my favorite equipment menus because it's pretty ingenious. Like it seems counterintuitive. Like you're taking up an item which you put on Therion for survivability, but in this case it actually increases his survivability because now both attacks from Esmeralda are going to put him under 30% HP, so he's always going to be covered.
Well then.
So like he would, even with the bracelet, he would die to any 2 attacks from Esmeralda, but without the bracelet, he still always survives 1. He'll be in red HP no matter which one, so then he can't die anymore. Shoutouts to Esmeralda kill me 2-3 times in a row, by the way. It was a 3 out of 32 chance before this equipment routes, which was like basically 10%, and it happened to be so often. I really tried to find something better for surviving this. I think this is what I ended up coming up with. At least like
Yeah,
the
it's
latest
still-
iteration.
Yeah, it's still not guaranteed though, because Esmeralda has a chance to crit attacks, and if you're higher level, for example, Ophi might not get covered, or Ophi might not be in cover range, since everyone's either equipped to survive both attacks, which is Alpha and Tressa, unless they get crit, or take enough damage to be put into critical HP.
I've never seen the crits actually kill. I've seen the like non-cover happen. So ideally in this fight, you want to do Red Blade first because Red Blade does more damage, and every character that can't survive both hits will put into cover. With physical attack, there's a chance it doesn't put OP into cover, for example. I think she's only 1. So if I recall correctly, assuming proper setup, the only way a character can die in this fight is if Esme attacks OP, low rolls, so it doesn't put her into cover range, and then Red Blades her, which is a 1 out of 32 chance.
I've actually had a fight where I had to use Rev Jam in this fight to heal Ulfi because she got attacked first, she didn't go into cover. I Rev Jammed her, then Esme double tapped.
Whoa,
That's
okay.
pretty. It's really clever, honestly, to
Yeah.
eliminate that risk by rev jamming.
It was unfortunate use of it, but it had to be done. And also, I forgot to mention here, since we did all 4 of Chess's chapters, now we get the good old 8-minute break here.
Yeah.
Breaks are
nice.
healthy, folks.
Nice credits roll. This is one of the benefits of starting with Tressa. So in the Cyrus route, because you start with Cyrus, well, usually you start with Cyrus, and Cyrus's chapter 4 is done towards the end of the run. You get a credits break somewhere like 3 hours into the run. So with this, it's you can see it as an advantage for some people because you get a nice bathroom break in the middle of the run. That's a lot healthier.
Yeah, the placement in this is much better. So for Galdera, we have to beat all characters chapter 4. So no matter what character we start with, we will have to watch credits. One of the distinctions between this and all main stories is that since we don't need to beat Galdera or do anything after we beat all the bosses, we want to do the fight that gives us the credits last, and that's one of the important distinctions with choosing your starting character in that. For example, if Ophi starts, it would be terrible because you want to get Badge of Friendship, but as soon as you kill Ophi 4, you would get credits. And that's an 8-minute time loss, which makes it not a very fast route.
Yeah, with Galdera you don't get that restriction. Also, okay, so it's a bit past that already, but the reason why Red Blade and Attack actually do the same amount of damage, roughly the same amount of damage to Farion, is actually because High House Armor actually has the armor which we picked up in Marceline, now we put on Therion. It actually has a reduction of fire damage by, I think it's like 12% or 25%, something around there. But basically it makes it so that the amount of damage that Esme deals with both her attacks are about the same. And for Ophi, it's because she has way more elemental defense than physical defense. Something interesting about Esmeralda's attacks is that, so physical, the normal attack is a physical attack and deals physical damage. But the interesting thing about Red Blade is that it's counted as a physical attack, so it can be affected by cover and a merchant skill known as Sidestep, which allows you to be guaranteed evasion from any physical attack. But the damage it deals is elemental, so it's affected by your elemental defense. So we set up Ophi in a way that she has way more elemental defense, such that she just lives Red Blade, and she just lives the normal attack under 30% HP, so at level 28. So it's really cool how all the equipment and everything lines up in that fight.
Took a lot of trial and error and testing. Also, like stuff like this is heavily considered into our nut route. We always route our nuts in a way where we can survive as many things as possible, and just barely meet the requirements, but we want maximum coverage to not dying to bosses. Sometimes there's just risks that we can't avoid. So with clever routing, with equipment setups and nut setups, we managed to get rid of a lot of the risk to dying to bad patterns in this run, which is really cool.
How much did we talk about the Force Shield?
Not much.
Barely.
Yeah, but anyway, Zero probably mentioned that the Force Shield is one of the best shields in the game. Gives a ton of defense and elemental defense. It's gonna be very useful. It's technically optional, but the utility it gives in surviving a lot of attacks is so invaluable. We're talking there's a 1 in 4 chance for Darius. 1 in 4. Well, it's not exactly 1 in 4, but okay, basically later for Winnehild, without the Force Shield, Darion's just gonna get one shot if you don't give him anything else by a certain attack. And he has chances of getting double tapped by other bosses. And yeah, it just makes the route a lot more consistent to pick up the Force Shield. So we actually tried to route out the Force Shield and get some other, basically get nuts as a replacement for the Force Shield. So we have one Adamantine Shield, which unfortunately doesn't give as much physical defense as the Force Shield. So we tried to use that Adamantine Shield, but give Therion more nuts to cover for the Force Shield. But after a while, we kind of just reverted back to the Force Shield, because the amount of resources you have to spend to get those nuts, sometimes nuts are pretty expensive, especially the nuts that you need to pick up to cover the Force Shield's loss of defense, the Adamantine Shield's loss of defense. And yeah, just extra menuing and stuff like that as well. It just makes it a bit inconvenient, such that in a way that it's pretty much just more worth it to get the Force Shield. It's not worth it to skip the Force Shield. On top of that, you also lose one Soul Stone, which you get normally after getting the Force Shield.
And it makes the first screen slightly more scary because you reset the step counter a tiny bit later.
Yeah, it's one thing.
I'm just you could do it either way. I think Quadra's current thinking is that getting Force Shield's better. I never tried running it without Force Shield, so I don't have a good comparison, but it always just seemed intuitive to me to get it, because it doesn't lose you that much, and there's all these small benefits scattered throughout from having it. But I think they're fairly comparable.
Fairly comparable. Force Shield's 20 seconds, but you have to get extra stuff, so part of that time save is kind of eaten up by having to compensate for the lack of defense.
Yeah, there's also just risk, but there's a few convenient things that come out of it. You have to you can do some later menus very efficiently, but and to replace the force shield here, like you have to get extra skills. Like you have to give Alphen hang tough, for example, which for Ophelia route it's less convenient to get since Alphen gets other things.
Yeah, Alphen's already pretty beefy with his Hail and Hardy, which gives him plus 500. Basically, it's Empowering Bracelet in support skill form. He's super beefy, and giving him Hang Tough on top of that, which we haven't explained yet. We're gonna use Hang Tough later, you're not gonna see it now. But basically, giving him Hang Tough doesn't really do much for him, except for make up for the fact that you don't have a Force Shield.
Other characters get more value out of Hang Tough, though. We haven't mentioned what Hang Tough does yet. So what Hang Tough does is it's a support skill that essentially, if you were going to get a one-shot from, like, if you're not in red HP, so above 30%, and you're about to die, the attack, it leaves you at 1 HP. So just lets you survive stuff, essentially, at 1 HP. And it's actually really useful because most enemies in this game only hit once. So lets you tank for a while. And then if you're at 1 HP, you have characters that will have cover that will protect your character for 1 HP.
Yeah, Hang Tough plus cover is a pretty busted combination when it comes to cheesing single hit bosses.
But it does take JP and time to learn. Hang Tough was unlocked with, I believe, 4 merchant skills, so you gotta do that menu, you gotta learn like 2 other support skills before it, and then you gotta equip it. It does take a support skill slot, so there's trade-offs. In this route, it's not so worth it to have it. We'll use it on 1 character. No, that's not true. We'll be using it on more than 1 character. We'll be using it on 4, I believe.
Cyrus, Hanet, Primrose, yes. Any character that's not in the main party right now, pretty much.
Yeah, basically any character that doesn't have levels.
And Ulbrich. Basically all of our lower level characters.
Used to be only 3. Cyrus ended up getting Hang Tough later on. It was one of the newer ideas implemented into the route. Instead of, like, before I think we just tried to give him enough gear to survive fights that he needed to survive, but Hang Tough did the job much better than any alternative equipment.
Yeah, so we're finally done with the credits here, and now we actually do Alphen's second chapter, since it's actually a convenient place to go for whatever happens, or for the place we're going to go to after this boss.
Yeah. Now that we got the Lapis Lazuli, we can do the next side quest that we need to do to continue, like, to unlock the final boss, final dungeon, etc. And they had, like, the closest place to, like, fastest way to get there is to leave from Goldshore, which is where Alphen's Chapter 2 is. That's the last thing we need to do in this town. That's not true, actually. There's one more later on. But, yeah, it makes sense to do it now. Plus, this boss gets pretty good EXP JP. We haven't really mentioned it, but the reason we do, like, Tressa 4 first, or one of the reasons we do Tressa 4 first, is that you actually get pretty damn good EXP JP from Chapter 4 bosses, and she has one of the easier ones to manage. Right now we're doing all the fights that aren't too bad that we have the resources to deal with. Later fights are a little bit harder, but as we build up more XP, JP, and armor and stuff, they'll become easier.
Most of these Chapter 2 bosses kind of follow a pretty similar script. You basically use Elemental Break on the boss, you use you use like 2 sets of fully boosted sword attacks, and you just wave goodbye.
I think the biggest distinction between them is whether or not you have to break the bosses. Like, some you have to break and some you don't. That's like the most. Actually, do we break Omar now, right?
Break Omar.
Yeah, you still have to break Omar because, like, by then you're still like you're like a baby sorcerer.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Do
we break any other Chapter 2 bosses?
No.
Aside from Doggo, no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't even realize we do so many of them now without breaking. They used to break pretty much all of them at some point. So that's some progress right there.
It's nice to see the evolution of the route.
Yeah.
Especially if you if you compare, like, previous iterations of the route.
Breaking isn't, like, horrible or anything. It actually has some benefits. There's a bonus to EXP, like 10% EXP more, if you break at least one enemy in a fight. Breaking has that fairly slow animation and it takes more hits. You have to hit weaknesses and stuff, so it generally is slower to break things. It's nice that we've brought out so many at this point. This is the quest we were mentioning earlier, by the way. This is the last part of Kit's quest, and it's over here. And the fastest way to get here is from Gold Shore.
Yeah, we also steal a piece of armor from that lady there. And nice thing about it, it's 100% steel.
It gives some pretty good
general.
stats that we're going to be using later on because it gives some nice magic defense stats and it gives you increased SP, which is not going to be useful for this middle part of the run, but it's going to be really needed for the ending.
Believe it or not, it's pretty much essential, I would say, for the final boss. Because
I think it's the only fight where it's like really needed for the SP. But...
yeah, you do that fight. You do that fight with 1 SP remaining. With
if it goes properly.
Yeah, with the primeval robe. The best fight.
It's a very cool route too, right? It's like it works out perfectly. If the fight goes properly, that character in question will have 1 HP and 1 SP left. So it's pretty cool to look at. Alright, now we're finally finishing Therion 2. Fun fact, I think we've entered, like, Noble Courts do parts of Therion 2 a total of 4 times now. If I'm not mistaken. I know it's 3 or 4. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's a lot of times.
Yeah. But it actually does save time to do it this way. It's faster to do this than running back and forth a lot of the time, which is quite funny. Yeah, you just like, I think it makes the route a little bit less beginner friendly because you have to remember to do all these warps and stuff, but it definitely is faster than just like doing things straight up. And it's time to do them.
Did we explain the magic nut?
The one after
yeah, we
this,
haven't.
or-
Zero explained that we needed the XP from Esmeralda, but it also unlocks a certain item which you can get.
Yeah, so we haven't covered that. So in general, like once you beat the characters chapter 4, characters from their story will show up in various areas. And some of those characters have good stuff to like steal or purchase and whatnot. And for Trust's chapter 4, there unlocks an item we can steal from Omar, her chapter 2 boss in Boulderfall a little bit later. I'm being a Magic Nut M. And that Magic Nut M, it is, I wouldn't call it essential, but it lets us hit a lot of ranges that we wouldn't be able to hit normally. And it definitely saves time. It's also a fun distinction between the Ophelia and Cyrus route. Because Cyrus has more elemental attack, he actually doesn't get that Magic Nut. With Ophi, you do need it to fill out those ranges.
And okay, not magic missile. Whatever.
No magic missile.
No magic
Yeah,
missile.
RNG.
It's good RNG. Magic missile is super slow.
The flame guides us.
Magic's missile may be slow, but it gives you good RNG, and it's fun, and it's funny.
It's funny. But yeah, here's the magic nut, which we were talking about. And usually we steal it, but since I don't trust Therion, I've started purchasing it instead of stealing it.
Yeah, it's actually
Oh, did you?
convenient to.
Nice.
It's actually also convenient to go for the steal because we're gonna be right next to the tavern, and we're gonna pick Cyrus back up in our group. So we actually kind of want to do the Cyrus chapters because the Cyrus chapters give us a lot of JP. So we pretty much kind of can't ditch him. Ideally we would do those boss slots, but because Cyrus's bosses give a lot of JP, we unfortunately have to do it. But thankfully we can delay it till a decent bit later.
Yeah, Cyrus's chapter 2 boss I think gives the highest EXP JP of all chapter 2 bosses, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, gives a lot.
I believe it gives you 350 base.
No, it's 600 JP from Yvonne. Oh no, Yvonne. Gideon gives you 320.
Yeah.
Vanessa
That's
actually has the
pretty good.
most. Vanessa gives you 360.
Wow, I didn't realize. I thought Gideon gave more. It's a fun comparison to Omar and Orlick though, which give you like 30
Oh
or
my
something.
gosh. Give you 60.
Omar and Orlick give you like negative.
Yeah, you're better off killing random encounters.
Yeah.
Grinding.
The encounters before Omar give you more XP JP than Omar himself. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if we could skip those fights, we would, obviously, but we just need to beat him to continue the story.
Yeah.
So fun thing for Cyrus chapters, for all his chapters, he has to do this little quiz because he's like investigating stuff. And if I recall correctly, 1 in doubt, the answer is 2. It's the second option, pretty much always.
Yeah.
In chapter 3, it's all 3s.
In chapter 2, it's all 2s, and in chapter 3, it's all 3s. Unfortunately, there isn't an option 4 for chapter 4.
I think it just goes back to 2.
Yeah, it just goes back to 2. 2, 3, 2.
There's also a fun little story with the chapter 4 one where we sometimes like got a cutscene skip in chapter 4 prompts, and we just like we couldn't figure out why. We were just like, oh, we must be doing faster or something. No. Turns out it was actually faster than not skip the cutscene. It just like it advanced quicker than if you held down B to skip it.
It's my turn now. Peacock's rush.
A little trivia.
Yeah, that's a weird thing though. There's only a couple cutscenes where you actually want to mash through it since it's only like 1 or 2 texts. Earlier you saw that in Ophelia. You just mash through the text because it kind of like launches you and lets you move immediately. But in most cutscenes that's not the case.
Feel Free is like a very notable one because it lets you insta move, whereas holding the cutscene you can move for like 2 more seconds. And I think the text skipping in text is actually faster on its own too. I think that's like the most noticeable one.
Right, we actually, fun fact, we actually just have enough damage to use 2 Ignis on Gideon. The elemental break damage actually covers the remaining damage that you need. Before we used to do it with Lux, but in Zero realized you can just use 2 Ignis. Saves like 2 inputs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're able to use Ignis because you're actually much higher level here than if you did
Yeah,
with
if you're a
Cyrus,
little
'cause
under
Cyrus
level, you
does.
probably do Lux still.
Yeah, in the Cyrus Sork route, you actually have to use Lux because you do it at like 3 levels lower.
Speaking of Lux, that was actually not always learned first. Like when we first unlocked Sork, we learned Lux and Elemental Break. At some point, it was actually Tanitris and Elemental Break. And then we just realized that we can use Lux to hit like 3 different weaknesses. Back then, Ophelia Sork wasn't even a thing, so we did Gideon earlier. And then we realized we could use Lux to hit Gideon, and we could use Lux to hit Orlick. With elemental like buff damage, and it lets us skip the break on those, whereas before we had to break. So that was a nice little touch.
You actually used that to break Gideon, and that was pretty problematic because he has 7 shields. And you need to use both merchants to break, which is really annoying.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was before you started running this category. I think it was like one of the first things I like. It was new when I started running this. So pretty old change. But I think before you learn Tanitris for Yvonne, because you need that's important for the fight we're gonna do now, Yvonne, which is Cyrus's chapter 3 boss. But I think you had enough JP to learn Tanitris here anyway at that point, so you just delayed it until here.
Yeah, speaking of this upcoming boss fight, a lot of fights in the Ophelia route compared to the Cyrus route are better, namely like Matthias, Esmeralda. Those fights are safer now, except for this fight. This fight is kind of a pain, and I'll let the others explain why, but this fight's kind of a pain sometimes.
Yeah, so you have Cyrus here at a much lower level than, of course, him as a Sork. And Yvonne's ads, as well as himself, hurt quite a bit. So we had to put all of our defensive gear on Cyrus, and he's still not that beefy. And he also has a chance to miss Yvonne since he's much lower level. And it's really annoying, and Quadra has had the special where he missed Yvonne on all of his attacks, so he couldn't break Yvonne. And also, the ads can kill Cyrus with Tornado.
Super squishy. In fact, it's actually optional to put a bracelet on Therion, but because Therion died so many times on me that I just started giving Therion a bracelet before this fight.
Yeah.
Also,
this is actually probably like...
Oh, sorry. Also, we taught 2 sorcerer skills, 2 more sorcerer skills, which unlock Elemental A, which gives us a damage buff.
Oh, not
The way that works is it's a support skill from Sorcerer, and it gives you a 1.5 times damage multiplier on your sword skills. But you also have to pay double the SP now. So SP management gets a little bit harder at this point. You generally have enough SP, like your full bar will be enough for 1 fight at a time.
I think not.
Yeah, in this fight, you actually want to hope that Ophelia goes before both of the ads on the second turn, or else it starts getting pretty dicey if they don't.
Yeah, they have more chances to kill you essentially.
Yeah.
nitrous
But thankfully, since Ophelia is generally first here, we can kill them with the 2 BP to nitrous. And then
And
after that, we
tornadoes
just need to do a couple bit more damage on the Yvonne, because even a fully boosted Ignis doesn't kill here. So we'll need an extra soulstone and some damage.
Yeah, sometimes Yvonne is even a range if you low roll your Ignis. But in this case, I actually got enough damage.
This chapter is also one of the worst because you can get an encounter here, and
Oh yeah, oh
It's-
my gosh, the encounter
it's
sucks.
really annoying.
All the encounters here are bad. They just have awkward weaknesses where you can't really break them all, or even like most of them, and they're tanky enough to take unbroken spark damage. They're just messy fights always.
Yeah, so now we're coming up here on probably the most recent route change. Now we get haunted early for a couple reasons. So we used to have to do the what was that guy's name? Alphas boss with Ulbrich, because Ulbrich, and he needed level 25 for it, but now since we get haunted early, we are able to do the Alphas quest early, and that gives us a decent amount of benefit, or a couple benefits. So it lets us do his quest earlier on, because before we had to do an extra trip to Saints Bridge, and now that we can do early haunted, we can skip that extra trip to Saints Bridge, because we had to wait until we got over to 25 to deal with that. But now we just exchange a slightly slower haunted 1 fight here for a much more consistent
My turn.
much more consistent, and saving a trip to Saints Bridge, because there is a pretty low chance, but Ulbrich can die, and if he died on any of the fights, he wouldn't hit level 25, which is the level you need to challenge Alphas. So that would be really bad. But now, since Haunted doesn't have a level requirement to face Alphas, and we can just throw a Soulstone to kill him.
It's actually a really funny story how early Haunted came to be in this route in particular. In Cyrus route, it was always a thing.
Well, not always.
Not
It
always
was
a
one of
thing,
the
but
newest additions.
but it was in the Cyrus route. It wasn't in the OP route. We used to do, like Sanjay said, we used to do Alphys' side quests after Ulbrich's chapters, which is later in the run. And the reason is because we kind of need a certain party to do Alphys' quest and then go to Saints Bridge, because we kind of want Alphen in the party and then a bunch of stuff. One Alphen in the party, we also want Hanan in the party and stuff like that. And it's kind of hard to get everyone in the party. But we didn't realize that you can swap party members
Well then,
when you recruit characters. You don't need to just pick up the character. You can actually swap other characters in and out of your party. So after we realized that, we're like, oh, actually we can do early Hanan in this route.
Yeah. Could have done it before too, but it wasn't efficient enough. It's like, if it saved any time at all, it was very little, and it felt very awkward to do because it had like 2 free tavern swaps. It's just like, when I looked into it when I first routed Opie, it just did not seem worth the trouble. With this, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, for some reason we just forgot, because no other category, no other route swaps in multiple party members when recruiting a character. Not even the Cyrus route. In the Cyrus route, you just kind of pick Hanan up and replace Tressa.
I believe we found it by accident too, or one of us just realized it.
Now, let
It was Quadra that found it. I don't know exactly when it happened. Did you like swap the wrong character in on accident? Just like, oh wait, this is good? Or did he
Actually,
just,
no.
like,
I think it was kind of like one of those like shower thoughts, or like when you're sleeping thoughts. Like, actually, can you do that? And I tried it and like, wait a minute, wait a minute. How do we not realize this?
It's a great find. It's not something we'd ever think about, because it's, like you said, we never use that mechanic.
Yeah, we just forgot it even existed. Also, shoutouts to Enchanted Sword. We got from Alphys.
I had a question. Does that override, or is that your first item priority over Warner's
Yeah, I
Sword?
think it comes before Warner's Sword.
Oh, that's bad RNG.
Well,
Oh, there goes
Salad.
Therion again.
if it comes to the point where I need to sell stuff, then maybe
Yeah.
it would be useful.
Sells for like over 10k if I recall correctly. It's pretty good money wise, but ideally we get enough. We haven't talked about discounts yet, but Tressa, when she buys stuff, she can get a discount, and depending on like what level she is, the amount that discount changes. It's like generally around like 20-25% ish. And we buy some really expensive items, and so we get discounts on them. We save a lot of money, and then we can pick up less money or like sell less, etc., to buy all the stuff that we need throughout the run. So one of those is actually coming up fairly soon. We'll be buying the BT staff, and that thing costs like 86,000. And if I recall correctly, a bargain on that is like 21k or 23k or something, which is huge.
There's a
Hopefully we
couple of
get that.
high item cost or high really costly items that we buy that we kind of hope to get a discount on. Like, you don't need the discounts, but in certain cases it's really useful because, for example, you can miss opportunities to get extra money and then you're like down money and you have to take like some slower routes and backups.
Like, money route will never kill your run unless you made like a mistake somewhere, or like maybe had a really weird fight where you can collect or something along those lines. Assuming the route went somewhat properly, even with like no discounts and like no good drops, you will always have enough money. It is faster to have good money because you can skip selling and you can get like a lot of purchases earlier, as opposed to like if you had really bad money, you'd have to get it later and it costs more pathing. So it's not like a make or break the run, but it does save time to have these little things go right.
Got an unlucky RNG encounter there. It's not really super likely to get an encounter in that screen. But yeah, thankfully we ran away from it. Not guaranteed, so that's kind of why it's annoying to get it.
Yeah, failing that escape is just a huge feels bad, man.
Yeah, but now we're in
It's like,
Saints
it's not even
Bridge.
a battle I should receive.
Now we're in Saints Bridge. We can do Alpha's side quest. Like Sanjay said, we used to come here one extra time just to do the side quest, but now we can do it at the same time as we do Alpha's story. And that's kind of why you need.
The pathing here.
Okay. Sorry.
I meant not you. I meant like people watching the stream.
Oh yeah. I was like kind of stuck in this train of thought. I forgot. Oh yeah. I was gonna say that's what kind of why we needed Alphin in this party and also Hanet to do the provoke and yeah. Once we got to Wellspring, we took Hanet out
back and check up on me.
for Tressa again.
I was gonna say after we do this right here, when we start going up, pay attention to pathing. Alpha's quest we'll finish right in front of the church, and then we'll go into the church and buy an item in there. And you notice how deep into Saints Ridge we are. Like, if we start at the start of town, we have to like run through a screen transition a pretty long distance to get to the church. Doing this early essentially cuts out one of these trips, because if you didn't do this early, you would have to make 2 trips. But since we have both set up now, we can just do this all at once, and we never have to make this run again. Which is why it's really good to get on it early. It allows this. Oh, if you did the older route with no Hanet early, you wouldn't do the Alpha's part of the quest right there. You would do this, and then at some point you'd have to make your way back here, enter Saints Bridge, and run all the way up to where Alpha's was, or where that lady was, to finish Alpha's quest. And that definitely takes a significant amount of time.
Yeah, so you can actually do steals like right outside the black market, but the masks in here are 3% steal. If you're able to get the steal, you would actually cut out a cutscene inside, but we don't. But thankfully, the fun thing is if you teleport outside back to the tavern, you can infinitely steal from the tavern keeper. Like, if you're really low level, it's not 100%. It's a pretty low chance, but you can pretty much steal from them even if you lost all of your reputation. So eventually
I'm
you're able
disappointed
to
that
get inside.
Quadra didn't go for the 3% steal. Come on. It's a good fight here. Yeah, we're just like wrapping up some character chapter 3s now. We want to hit a certain JP threshold. We want to have enough to teach Ophi one more sorcerer skill. We want to hit around 8,000 for Therion so we can teach him the cleric divine skill. And once we get that, we'll be going into our next really big boss fight. It's right after this boss fight coming up here.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Also,
boss
we're
fight
just-
actually gives us just enough JP to learn also the divine skills for Tressa and Therion. They'll be learning the Aelfrix and Elephants, respectively. Sorry, you can go on about the equipment menus here.
I'm just trying to remember. I don't think Trestle learns Elephants quite yet, though. If I'm not mistaken. It's been a while.
Oh yeah, that's true. Therion learns Aelfrix, and we'll be using it for this first part.
How do you like this?
This is actually a pretty interesting boss fight in terms of like running. This one is a lot less scripted than a lot of the other boss fights we've done because it heavily depends on turn order. Ideally, a queen fight's like a quick 2-turn.
Here you go.
And it really depends because we need to get a certain amount of Stork spells out with Opie, and we also need to buff her up enough. And if she's like first turn 2, for example, it's kind of hard to get the buffs in time. But this turn order is good. Like Quadra will be able to donate BP with Therion there. No extra resources, then she'll be doing a max damage Stork spell. So I think that's just a really clean Galdera fight.
Yeah, really
You
nice
don't
guy.
really use Elemental Break here because he's very dodgy. He can dodge a lot of attacks, and so you also notice that in the equip menu that we optimize Ophi to equip the BT or Battle Tested staff, which gives her a lot more elemental attack, but trait makes her very slow, and we actually want her slow for a couple fights here.
Yeah, generally the fights right around this point we want her slow, so it works out nicely.
Yeah.
We never even mentioned BT stuff is what we bought off that bishop there that costed 86,000. It has 66 more elemental attack than knowledge staff, and doesn't have a speed bonus. Like 66 doesn't sound like that much. It's like compared to like when you're at 333, 66 is not that big a difference, but it lets us hit a lot of thresholds that we wouldn't be able to hit. For example, getting a 5-turn fight in this fight coming up would not be possible without it.
Yeah.
Additionally, making her slower for these fights is really good too.
You notice I actually did the Gareth menu like right after that encounter, just before Gareth. Because for that encounter, I still want OP to go fast. But afterwards, I want her to go slow.
That fight is definitely better with OP fast because she can clear it in one shot and all the other characters can't. And then if you have all the guys before OP, that slows it down even more. But,
So this
time
is-
for Steora. Go ahead, Sanja.
This is probably the hardest fight to kind of like think on your feet because you're looking out for quite a few things, and she does a lot of annoying things. So she's gonna guarantee someone to be confused there. So in this case, we got pretty lucky, and we got Therion confused. But if she confuses someone and their turn is right after, like you can use a decent amount of turns. The second thing Quadra wants to do is have to get Aelfrix off on Ophelia before her turn on turn 2, so that we can easily break her. Because without it, we'd have to take more avenues to break her, and we have to go through 7 shields. And what Aelfrix does is it doubles the. It basically gives you an extra cast of a sword spell. So this is how we're going to be dealing 60k damage right off the bat here. So we're gonna be using the fully boosted sword spell here for Ophelia, and that's going to do around 60,000 damage to Steora. And we also have to heal a couple people here, so you have to manage like quite a bit. You have to manage turn orders, you have to manage her shields, and also on top of this, she can randomly has 3 patterns that she can go to, which is a 12 shield pattern, which is the worst, the 8 shield pattern, which is not bad, and the 4 pattern, which is the most ideal. So he got a pretty okay pattern here. So I believe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but if he got a Peacock before Ophelia's Ignis, then this fight is pretty much free. And the nice thing about this is that hopefully you get a free elemental break proc here, but since Alphen was after Ophelia, it didn't really make a difference. But if you didn't get the Peacock off, you just need a little bit of extra damage. And also, yeah, we had Tressa collect Steora for an extra 80k, so there's a lot in this battle that can happen, and it's
Super
probably
stressful fight.
It's probably one of the most difficult fights, especially for people new to Galdera.
Super stressful fight, especially when things go wrong. And there's a lot to pay attention to. Even if you get a good pattern, like it's very easy to miss something.
The biggest thing that you're afraid of is essentially Steora hitting someone right before they take their turn, because she confuses whoever she hits, and if they're about to take their turn, that means you lose their turn and then you still have to remove their confusion, so you lose 2 turns. That's when the fight gets really dicey. If that doesn't happen, you can generally cover most patterns, but it's sometimes trickier than other times. Also, one thing you want to never do in that fight is never buff anyone before Steora is broken or about to be broken. Because if you buff someone, she might switch patterns to I think she does Shooting Star and Restore Balance, I believe.
Restore balance
And
and
we'll restore.
I think it's Song. No, she does Song on turn 1.
Okay, yeah, Song of Stars here. The bad thing is Restore Balance. What Restore Balance does is it removes all buffs on a character, and it also prevents them from getting buffed for like 5 turns. So if she does that on your Stork, you're basically just, yeah, you lost. Or you're gonna have to do some mega improvisation because you can't give him Peacock, you can't give him the Aelfric, so you've essentially lost all your damage. One of the older strats was to use Alphen's Curious Mist, which is one of his concocts that makes you immune to statuses on all characters. But if you do that, then she might switch to that pattern, and if she does that on Ophelia, which at that point would be a 25% chance, you just lost the fight. So we don't do that anymore. So no matter what, you have to risk something in that fight. It's really scary.
You also so the Starseer class itself isn't that good, but we wanted to get it because it has some very good passives. So we gave Alphen here Hard Worker because Hard Worker gives you 1.5 times bonus JP, and it also stacks with the Badge of Friendship. So now we're gonna get a lot more JP from fights now that we have it. There's also some very useful effects like Boost Star, which gives you an extra BP, which lets you start 2 PB at the start, and then BP Eater, which is a massive damage boost for boosted attacks.
BP Eater is just silly OP. If you boost anything, like you do a boosted attack with a character and you have BP Eater on, it's automatically an extra 1.5 times the multiplier. No downsides at all.
So overpowered. Unconditional 1.5 times damage boost. Just insane.
And yeah, now you'll see that for Chapter 3 bosses, we don't even bother breaking them, at least for Miguel, because Miguel's not that beefy, and thanks to Aelfrix and fully boosted Ventus, we pretty much just deal full or cap damage to him.
One thing about Aelfrix is that, okay, so at this point in the game, we're hitting cap damage already. And there's actually a skill that allows us to break the cap damage. So right now the cap is 9999, but we can raise it to 5 nines. So 99,999 with a certain skill later. But we don't have enough JP to teach it yet. So the way we get around that is actually by using Aelfrix, which allows us to double our damage essentially by dealing more hits instead of dealing more damage per hit. But once we get Surpassing Power, which allows us to break the damage cap, then you're going to start to see very big numbers when we start to stack like every single buff on our sorcerer, which is not too far from now.
You saw in the last fight that we were already hitting the damage cap there, so we're already being a little bit gated by damage cap. And we're still not pumping our damage as high as we can because we know that the damage cap is just going to make it useless. Only gonna get harder from higher damage from here. And also, this fight coming up, next boss fight, is in my opinion the second hardest boss fight up until like the very final bosses. It's like right after Stellaura, but it depends on how it goes. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, so this boss,
status.
Yeah, so we're gonna be facing Ogre Eagle here, and Ogre Eagle is very beefy. So we want the BT stat to deal as much damage. Technically, you can kind of do it with the Knowledge Staff, but it's
not worth it.
It's not worth it. Yeah. And you kind of want Ophelia to be slower for this fight anyways. Okay. But Ogre Eagle's attacks mean that it can give you like any random status. Sometimes it's just like a random defense or strength down debuff, which we don't care about, but you can also get confused, slept. And if that happens on a character where you don't have the chance to heal them, heal their status, it's really, really bad.
If I recall correctly, 2 out of 6 chance of getting a bad status. And then it's just like, yeah, once again, turn order comes into play. If you can't heal the status in an efficient way, the fight gets really rough.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That was perfectly synchronized, all 3 of us. That was great. There are things you could do to mitigate, for example. Well, actually, go ahead. I was thinking you could skip collect, but I don't even remember if we collect this fight anymore. So
you actually collect this fight.
Okay.
Like, the backup, it's pretty bad if you don't collect it, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, so like, if you have a really horrible fight, you can skip collect in favor of killing fast and get the money elsewhere.
I actually have a weapon known as Gideon's Dagger on...
It's my turn now.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Actually, yeah, I got bad status there.
Yeah, that's the 2 out of 6, but
Yeah,
it's
but
manageable.
I have a weapon known as Gideon's Dagger on Therion, which increases his speed, makes him more likely to go before Ophelia, and that gives you more leeway in case of stagger's ailments like this. So in this case, the Gideon's Dagger actually paid off.
Here we go.
I really want Therion to go before Ophelia, like on turn 2 in this fight and with Steora. Even in, like, actually in all the upcoming fights, in the 2 fights after this as well, we want Therion before Ophi, because then he doesn't have to defend to go before Ophi, so we basically have a free turn to do something, like heal status, for example. And the reason we want before is because we want to buff Aelfric's on an Ophelia before she goes, so we can get the double damage in.
Yeah, in that Steora fight, we actually didn't get Therion before Ophelia, but thankfully the turn orders work out, but when it doesn't work out, for both Steora and Eagle, it's not a good fight. Especially if something bad happens.
Also accidentally used my Windstone. My last Windstone. So that matters a bit for later, but it's
very small.
It's very small. Yeah, but some stone route is also something you have to manage. When you're running, when you want to run this at a high level, you want to pay attention to what stones you have, what elements of stones you have, and how many stones you have.
At a minimum, you're required certain stone elements for certain fights, so you got to make sure you have enough of some. Like, you can substitute, for example, for haunted chapters, you want a lot of fire elves. You can substitute and shadow elves as well. If you want to take a little bit more menu time, you can equip a Lizard King Staff, which we'll get later, and that buffs lightning damage. And if you do that, you can substitute some of those with Thunder Elves. But it's still, like, you gotta make sure you have enough overall, or things can get really sketchy.
So you see here, we got just enough JP to learn Surpassing Power, because now we're also going to give Ophelia, or not Ophelia, Tressa Elephants, and now we're going to be off to do Winnehild. So Winnehild has quite a bit more HP than Steora and Tracing, so that's why we waited to do Winnehild until we had both Elephants and Aelfric's, and this fight has actually changed quite a bit from over a year ago. Like, there's been a lot of changes to this fight.
I think when we started running this, me and Sanjan, I think it was like a 7-turn fight, and it was done with a different boss order too. Because some people that are playing, like, play this game casually might have know the sidestep transfer rune cheese strat. We used to do that. So we fight Balgar first, so we had to get Tressa transfer rune, and then we do that in sidestep to make sure that Winnehild couldn't kill people, and it was like a 7-turn ugly fight. Oh, it's a bit faster. It's progressed over time. It's went from like 7 to 6 to like 4 to 3. But it's way better now than it was before, and it's done earlier, which is really nice because getting Winnehild or getting War Master unlocks extra experience. So the earlier you get that, the better, since that that increases the XP growth we get from battles by 1.5. So if we can do that before like certain bosses, it makes it even better.
Yeah, so this is why we also geared up, because Winnehild actually does a lot of damage to everyone here, so we're equipped to tank pretty much only Yatagasaru, which is our second attack. So that's actually pretty good. Hit Ophi there. So
okay.
Alphin's gonna be also very good. Was also very good versus Connacht, because his Connacht also deals ice damage, which is very convenient because she's weak to ice, and gives the leg hold effect.
Okay, good, no E-break miss. This is the only fight in the run now where you can miss E-break. And a lot of times you can mitigate the chance by breaking with Winnehild with someone else if you have a good enough turn order, and then E-break can't miss. But Quadra had to defend with both Therion and Tressa there, so he had to break with Ophi.
Yeah. Also say goodbye to Rune Lord Cheese, who needs that in our life.
Don't blink, but don't blink because you miss it. Winnehild get roasted.
Also want to point out that Ophi lives with 62 HP here with poison on. But that's fine because Ophi finishes the boss and you don't take damage after that. The equipment, armor, nut route all works out in this fight that almost every scenario you live just barely. Like Winhild's almost unable to kill people. I think the only scenario in which you can kill someone the way that it actually causes problems is if she double targets Alpha and poisons him. Everything else you can cover with turn order and like strategizing. It'll work out fine and always do a free turn fight, which is super cool.
Yeah, so now with that, so technically we can delay Balagard to later, but Balagard gives us a really nice bit of XP and JP, so this is the last secret boss that we're gonna do, since we can pretty much just do it, and it's also free because we're gonna give Balagard a Win the Hill treatment as well.
I do want to mention that this is the last fight we used Alpha in for a really long time, which is why we want to do this now. After this, we'll start working on the other characters' stories, and Alphen will be gone for a while. And Alphen is incredible for Balagard. He's incredible for all the fights, all the secret job fights. We didn't even mention it, but did a really good concoct on Win the Hill called I forgot what it was called.
But if you can,
Incense, there we go. If you do Injurious Dust and Curious Bloom, it's an AoE, one hit of ice, but it also puts leg hold on every enemy. So we're able to knock off a shield and leg hold at the same time without a hunter in our party, which we don't have room for because we need all the secondaries that we have equipped, which makes that fight possible. And right here, he'll have a job too. He might not need to do it if we have good turn order, but if we don't, he fixes bad turn order in this fight as well, using the Curious Bloom again, which is why it's so damn valuable.
I forgot its name exactly, but if the turn order allows, you're going to see it be really nice because it gives you basically an effect where that character's going to always be first on that turn. So this is why we need it, because Tressa needs to be the one breaking Balagard here, because now he was only weak to Shadow and Axe, and we use Tressa as bandits to break.
So the thing about breaking Tressa, if she's breaking turn 2, she can't defend turn 3, and you can actually see the turn order here. And we need to go before OP turn 3 because she needs to buff Elephants on the OP. This is where this kind of thing comes into play. But you can actually save the Curious Bloom by doing Panther Dance to speed her up once, because she was right after OP. As long as she's before OP, that's all that matters. So nice little optimization there to save a Curious Bloom.
Yeah, Curious Blooms are really valuable since we use a lot of it everywhere. It's, aside from Essence of Pog, probably one of the most overpowered items that you can use.
Essence of Pog, we only need one, but we really need that one. We could use bonuses to save palms later on in certain situations, but you only need the one. Curious Blooms you need way more of, but the amount you get always fluctuates per run. The amount you need to use always fluctuates per runs. It's not as consistent.
Thankfully, it's a lot easier to get Curious Blooms than Essence of Pogs, because Essence of Pogs are very hard to find, and they're usually in inconvenient spots.
Yeah, they're very rare to get, in a consistent manner. They're pretty common from drops, but you're not guaranteed them from drops, obviously, so you kind of want to make sure you have at least one, which is why we buy one in Alpha 1. You could get more later. For example, I think everything in OP's Chapter 2 Forest, Mirkwood, drops an Essence of Palm, but you can't guarantee it. And backtracking because you didn't get that would be horrible. But say bye to Alphen for a while, and let's welcome Ulbrich to the party. Time for the Ulbrich chapters.
Is Japanese by any chance in the lead right now?
Unfortunately, it is not.
No.
But people can donate real fast and change it.
We don't get to hear August line and all of Octopath.
You have another 10 minutes until you can no longer hear the other best Japanese line. Very nice surprise.
Totally needed that. It's not like we have evil words.
The good thing we got the preempt for the guaranteed escape there. Otherwise, we could lose a lot of time by failing it.
Take this.
Okay, at this point with Evil Ward in Chapter 1, there's nothing we can't run from 100% of the time. Or knowledge. Maybe it's 99.99999 and we just have never gotten that unlucky. But as far as we know, it's guaranteed.
Okay,
so we actually do Ulbrich's chapter very specifically after Alphen's, because completing Ulbrich's chapters gives us an item called ability to get an item called the Captain's Badge, which increases our EXP gains by 1.5 times. So it's basically like the Badge of Friendship. But Ulbrich's chapters are generally harder to complete, and we need more items since the bosses are a little tougher and there's a lot more bosses we have to deal with, so we could only have the opportunity to do it till now.
Clearing Goldbreak doesn't really help us do like secret bosses and stuff, so it makes much more sense to do Alphen first, who helps with that sort of thing. And Captain's Badge is nice for the EXP boost, but you get that off of Windhild as well, so it's like it's comparable in terms of the bonus EXP, so it makes more sense to do Windhild first since it's faster. And he also gets Exterior and all that along the way. Olbrick is sadly pretty useless for those kinds of fights. Like I don't even know what he'd do, but he wouldn't be anywhere near as useful as Alphen. But in terms of like chapter order, we do it in a very specific way for specific reasons. Like Alphen's really good for all the secret bosses. Trust is just free EXP JP that we're still in need at that point. Cyrus we're gonna do really late, for example, at least for his 4, because his boss has 30 shields. And we don't want to break 30 shields, so we're gonna wait until we get strong enough to like not have to deal with that. Blocks the weapon, but that's not as important as getting the Captain's Badge faster, because the earlier we have that, the more XP we get throughout the rest of it. Prim doesn't really unlock anything special, sadly, so she's pretty late.
Also, we're going to be doing.
What do we do?
We're going to be doing some very honorable duels. This is totally an honorable duel, by the way.
Yeah. Olbrick is a very honorable fighter.
With each battle, I grow
His wallet is unbending. Let's just say that.
1v1 me, bro. Hires bets to fight for him. This is the fastest way to clear the duels, and we could afford it at this point. If our money was really bad, we can technically do it by breaking and throwing a soulstone. And I think on general lost like 11 seconds, if I recall correctly when I timed it. And you also lose the soul stones, which, like I said, we do have, or like Quadra said, we do have a pretty precise count for. So if you use extra stones, you'd have to replace the stones. So it's not just like you're saving money, you're also burning stones.
Yeah, in fact, my stone count is kind of low. I'm gonna have to do slightly different, some changes. I'm gonna have to make a few changes. Okay.
Yeah, we actually care about our soulstone route because later on
One
we
thing is
need
that I have to do this now.
we need to have Haunted do or throw stones since her fights will require it. She can't use honorable use of veterans unlike Olbert can. So
For you.
So sadly, both Olbrich and Hanek can 1v1 people, but Olbrich can actually fight. Hanek in fights can only use provokes, or not provokes. She can
Animals,
only use her,
the
like,
Pokemon.
Yeah. She can only use her Pokemon and items. And catching Pokemon takes time, and training them up to level up the Pokemon. Guaranteed catch rate. We don't have RNG minute for that kind of thing, like recent Pokemon runs. So it's better to just use items.
Yeah.
Soul stones.
also a majority of the Pokemon aren't very good anyways. They do really bad base damage. So it's just better just to throw stones, and on its challenges actually has some decent amount of HP and like certain items that we need. That's why we care about Fire Soul Stones and Shadow Soul Stones and Thunder Soul Stones a decent bit.
Time for our Olbrich 2 gauntlet. So Olbrich Chapter 2 is unique in that it has multiple boss fights. In a way, Olbrich 3 as well. 3 other characters only have like 1 boss fight per chapter, but Olbrich hits special. He gets more. And all these fights are pretty cool, actually. They you really want OP to not be first in this fight. That's the most important thing, because OP with full BP will basically one-shot all these fights, or the first 2. Which is why BT staff is really nice here. Without BT staff, you're much more likely to go first, and without the elemental attack that you get from BT staff, you also wouldn't kill as easily. You would need more buffs. So this is one of the places where BT staff saves the most time. Nice. You got pretty good turn orders. They're good enough. One of the downsides of also not getting OP first is there is a JP bonus for clearing the fight in 1 turn, and if you have OP first, you can't clear the fight in 1 turn. It has to be a 2-turn fight. So you lose the JP bonus. And if you're playing a really tight JP route, missing that JP from bad turn order can actually make you short for JP in certain spots. So it's really nice that we got 1-turn fights here.
Yeah, that's also why we gave Ophelia the BT staff, even though earlier on we gave her the knowledge staff, because the BT staff gives us just enough damage for us the knowledge staff wouldn't, and it made her faster, which we don't want.
Here. At least for now. Knowledge staff will be making a comeback fairly soon. This third one, Gustav. This one actually can't be a one-turn fight. Gustav is fairly tanky boy. But it's still pretty quick, two-turn fight. Ideally, if we have a good fight, we do this fight without Elfric, because we don't want the double Ignis animation, which I think this is. This looks like a fast Gustav fight in terms of that, but Gustav gets 2 turns here, which is a little unfortunate.
And the only thing you don't want here is OP first, because then generally you'd be forced to use Aelfrix.
And like, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, it's just time loss.
Yeah.
We don't like losing time.
Okay, now we have to come back to Saintsbridge again just to purchase this nut. We used to do this like after Ulbrich, or when we were doing Alphys's quest. But even though we have to make this trip just to get the nut, it's still faster to do early on it. And yeah, we need that nut because it's gonna buff Therion's attack later, and we're gonna need as much physical attack as we can get on Therion. I'm gonna put the knowledge staff back because I'm gonna want OP to go pretty fast for these upcoming fights. It's very important to put the knowledge staff on her now because in Ulbrich Chapter 3 you have 2 fights which you want OP to go first so she can clear those fights pretty easily. If you don't have the knowledge staff on her, she tends to go last, and that loses you on average, like, I don't know, like 15 to 20 seconds per fight. It's very slow.
Just really painful to experience waiting for OP there. As you know, every other character does literally nothing because there's nothing to do. You just wait for OP. OP just one-shots everything.
Yeah. OP has like the lowest base speed in the game out of all the characters, along with Alphen. And we're able to circumvent some of that by using knowledge staff. So if you don't have the knowledge staff, you can reasonably expect that she goes last a lot of the times.
Yeah, you actually don't really need the damage from BT staff anymore, not for a good while now, so we're going to be keeping the knowledge staff on for a very good while, since pretty much for up until like one of the last few bosses, we want to keep we want Ophiolate to be speedy.
The flame guides us true.
Like after this, like Sanjan said, we pretty much clear bosses without extra damage now. Soon we'll also have the captain's badge, so we'll have like all our max multipliers for EXP and JP. So now like that becomes the optimal time to start taking random battles for EXP and JP that we normally wouldn't want to take. And in addition to that, in the upcoming chapters, we're more likely to get random battles on a lot of screens. For those, we always want OP to go first because she clears things really fast. She one-shots everything first.
Okay, we got this upcoming fight against the Lizardman Chief. Some of us like to call him the Lizard Meme Chief. I like to call him PogChamp because he looks like Komodo hype. Take my word for it. I have an emote for that, and the Octopath, the speedrunning community also has an emote for this Komodo hype kind of boss. And essentially just use Elfrix, either a ×4 Tonitrus or ×3 Tonitrus with Elemental Break.
Yeah, you really want OP first before the ads, because if the ads get a turn in, then they waste quite a bit of your time because they're like booga booga, they're defending.
Yeah, you can see it right now, super slow.
I should have talked about it.
That was gonna happen. It happens most of the time.
It happens so often. It's essentially
to avoid.
Yeah, essentially if you don't get any lizards before you, that's like really lucky, I feel.
The best way to avoid it is to have the Lizard King Chief go before OP turn 1, so he summons his ads and then OP can't defend, but that situation is sadly fairly rare. So, you don't get to see it too often. If OP has already went defended and then they spawn out, I will almost always go before her, just how it is.
Okay, I haven't been managing my stone route very well, so I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna chuck 2 bats on the Earhart.
Oh, interesting. I was about to start mentioning about the cool new strat we found here where we saved 30k.
Well, you know what? We get to throw more money at Earhart anyways. Totally honorable duel, by the way, between his old friend. Totally honorable.
Well, we saved 30k, but technically that fight is 1 turn shorter.
Yeah, no, doing it like that does save 3 seconds, so this is optimal. The Shadow Elstone fight costs 3 more seconds, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
but it
but
saves you 30,000, which generally takes more than 3 seconds to get, so...
yeah, but it's fine. As long as I get discounts later, we're all good. But yeah, that was Earhart. He's like Ulbricht's like best friend from ages ago, and like they were gonna
Betrayed his kingdom. And,
supposed to have a
killed
nice chat. Steal his stone just for safety.
Yeah, they
Just-
chat
just
by
in case.
having an honorable duel, but Ulbricht's like, my wallet is unbending.
Talk to my wallet.
I feel like Ulbricht's definition of honor is a bit skewed. Maybe it's just me. Also, this is a really cool part of OP route right here. So this is another place where teleporting out and back in is faster as long as we do something. But because we're doing Ophelius, well, actually, I guess we don't guide him quite yet. Yeah, never mind. I guess that's not an OP benefit. My bad. But one of the cool things with OP is that you can guide the characters required for 2 side quests, and it ends up working out a bit nicer. I think you could delay that a bit more with Cyrus route. It makes sense to do it earlier because then when we do Haunted 4, we can guide Maruf. We don't have to make the extra trip to Marcelin, and it's guaranteed as well. That's something for a later time.
Yeah, but essentially that quest that we started is very important to start because it gives us a very important weapon for our endgame setup. You have to start it by going to Saint's Bridge, and then it spawns an NPC which you have to guide / allure in Marcelin. So the ideal time to do that is
Well then.
during Haunted 4 because you're already in Marcelin. With the Cyrus route, you can't do that. You have to start the quest. You have to start the quest when you start Prim 1, which is at that point after Haunted 4. So you have to make an extra trip back to Marcelin just to guide Maruf, or allure Maruf in that case. But the nice thing about the OP route is that you can take advantage of that situation to start the quest, so that when you're in Marcelin, you can actually guide Maruf.
It wasn't like something that I intentionally routed. Well, it's not one of the reasons I tried out OP Stork, but when I realized I could do that, I got so excited. It's like
Super
it's actually
optimal.
worked out really nicely. Yeah, cut out the whole Marcelin trip. My first attempt at routing this category, or with like OP Sork, I think it was like 4 minutes or so slower than like Cyrus Sork at that time. Then just like slowly kept on finding more and more of these like little things here and there to a point where it's like fairly comparable, but less luck based probably. So that's really cool. And then a lot of the stuff we found from this also got worked into the Cyrus Sork route, and that route got better too, which is also awesome.
Wait, no.
Yeah,
I
most
didn't
people
use-
primarily use Ulfi
yeah.
though, because Ulfi is just generally more consistent. Though, if you want the fastest times, you gotta hunt for the Forbidden Tech, also known as Kate's.
Yeah. To be fair, if you're doing Cyrus, you would just like grind Whistlewood as well, which is also not fun. But both, yeah, grinding for a rare encounter to start the run is not the most fun. And with OP, it fits a little bit better to do the early game grind without a Kate. But you can do Trustless Start with Fiverr technically, and then it works out the same.
Yeah, so you also see we did a big menu there to equip, give Ulfi a bunch of Starseer skills for BP Eater and Boost Start. So now everyone has Boost Start, and now we can start two-turning pretty much everything that looks at us.
Since we have
Including-
Boost Start on Therion and Trusted now, they can do the Divine Skills turn 2 now, so we don't need a third turn for setup. And because we have Boost Start and VP Eater on OP, we don't... VP Eater essentially replaces like E-Break or Peacock
Use this.
on the 2, so we can start getting by with less buffs essentially. So we need a lot less setup time now.
I summon Allison, the Scholar King.
This little tech there with the Therion break.
Witness the
Something you can only do if you have a good turn order.
Also, everyone pay attention to Horse and
Witness our dare.
Yeah, what? Is that a horse? Why is there a horse in a man's?
Look how tall Warner and the horse are compared to like the stairs in the background.
Every time we get to this point in the run, people just go like, horse, horse! It's a horse in a bed.
And you're so rich, you just keep your horse in your mansion because you don't care anymore.
You see, everyone asks, why is there a horse? But nobody ever asks, how is the horse?
Oh man.
Hey, if it's
Probably
as
not
roomy
good
as it looks
considering-
like, you know. It's not like
Considering how
Warner
hard
cares, he's a
Opie just spit it,
warlord.
I don't think it's doing that well.
It's not like Warner cares anyways, because he's a warlord and has basically a dictator of this the town.
Yeah.
He probably has like 10 other horses he keeps in his stable.
Yeah, you'll see we have to actually bring Alpin back for a little bit because we actually need to do an acquire on Donovan here so that we can complete this quest to get the captain's badge. But this also gives us another very important item called the battle tested blade, and it's actually probably the best physical weapon
Yeah, definitely.
that you can get because it also has an additional effect of basically dealing a lot more physical damage and more so than most other weapons.
Yeah, 1.3 times physical damage multiplier on all physical stuff, and it has 400 attack.
Yeah, super
That's by
good.
far.
The only bad thing is that it doesn't boost your VET's damage. But not,
Actually,
not that
never
it's
thought of
relevant.
That's a shame. I'll say train of thought.
I got-
So for like magic, there are various weapons that buff elemental damage for like each element, and so like 1.3 multiplier. For example, Wizard King Axe that we got a full break free buffs lightning damage. For physical, there's only the battle tested sword, which gives that kind of buff, but it's for all physical damage. So yeah, it's a very good weapon. So I want to mention that for the previous part, we could have brought either Cyrus or Alphin to do the quest, but the Scrutinize of Cyrus has a 96% chance, and he has one more text box, so a tiny bit faster to bring Alphin.
Yeah. Also, notice that I actually got a discount on the BT plate, which was 21,000, so nice refund there. I actually had to use one extra set of vets on Earhart, so that really helped out.
Then be
And I at least gave the money
Oh,
back.
this is what? Rip 2 seconds of my life. That's, if you notice, Hanet spoke. Hanet like
this will help.
had a really long text line. That's the reason why you want to run this in Japanese.
Stand this down against me, then be hunted.
Try this.
Also, notice I had to heal there just to cover in the worst case scenario.
Try and this.
Basically, you're not that likely to die here, but you can die if, let's say, Hanet goes last on the third turn, and then you get crit by one of the attacks, and all 3 attacks hit, which is not guaranteed because you have the Gustav shield, which increases your evasion. But like, just in case I die, I had to heal there, and if you die, it's really bad because you lose all your stones, and you have to redo the fight again.
Yeah,
Nice, I
I
got
actually
it.
don't know how you back that up if you die.
That's a good
I
discount
mean,
again.
yeah, I got a
too.
discount
You're
again.
Kind of made up for chucking the extra vets and
Yeah,
flexing
so
on
right now
Redmart.
I'm about 10,000 leaves short, judging by the money I had after purchasing Double Tomahawk, which is very easily fixable. I can even just not sell anything and wait until I purchase one item later and see if I get a discount.
You do, it ends up being a little bit slower if you don't get it though. It's like the gamble you pay.
Yeah,
Way more distance to make it to a shop.
you know, gotta go fast. So let's play it a bit risky. It's not even that risky. It's just a few seconds.
Let
Yeah.
hunt begin to try and this.
Spice things up a little bit, I respect it. Yeah, you can see here,
Try and
it
this.
has to do like multiple fights by herself, and if you pay attention to her options through Quadra's fast menuing, her only option is like summon beast, item, and like defend and flee. And summon beast is really weak. We don't have a good Pokemon, so we're just chucking soul stones everywhere until we win. Which is why
Yeah,
this is like the biggest part of the run where soul stone count matters, and it's really late, so it's like it's a little bit hard to track throughout the course of the run just to get to this point.
The only Pokemon Haunted has is Lynn, which scales off her attack and also misses a lot, especially because she's really low level. We also have a Forest Fox, which doesn't do any damage. It's a really low level Forest Fox, and then we have a Mossy Meat, which heals us.
For 500 HP.
Ow, Quadra, you wasted healing Great when you could have used the Mossy Meat.
Coming. If
You can even boost the Mossy Meat, which I think increases the HP heal.
Look at awkward
does.
turn
I
order
can't
here,
imagine
actually.
Oh, it's turn order, yeah. A little yucky. As long as OP's before the Order of the Force, so it's fine. Order of the Force actually has an attack that can knock people unconscious. And it's the only fight, I think, in the whole run. Oh no, this and Lizard Meme King are the only fights in the run that can unconscious a character. And because they should never have that chance, we don't ever buy Herbs of Revival. Also because they're not in any shops we'd go to normally, so it would take an extra shop trip. So if Opie gets unconscious there, yeah, you're gonna be waiting a while, just like waiting for the unconscious to wear off. I've had it happen very rarely. It really sucks. It's like the only dangerous thing about that fight.
Have we talked about why we do haunted chapters at this point?
I don't
Very
believe so.
briefly.
You can sort of explain.
Okay, yeah, so we do haunted chapters because we actually want to do a chapter to unlock a certain item that's going to be useful for the next boss. So, which is also a weapon that we want to use for the end game because it unlocks the primeval bow, which boosts the wind damage. And yeah, boosting wind damage is actually going to be a really important element much later on in the speedrun, but it's also a convenient item for some of the upcoming bosses after haunted chapters.
Yeah, you'll see that later. And also, the reason why we do haunted right after Ulbrich is because completing Ulbrich's chapter 4
Standest thou against me?
makes...
Then be hunted.
Oh my gosh.
Let the hunt begin.
Then be hunted. Okay. Makes Archibald spawn in Stoneguard, so you can buy
Let the hunt
the...
begin. Try
You can
and
buy the double tomahawk when he's there.
I actually forgot about that.
try and
We haven't
miss.
mentioned a double tomahawk yet. It's double tomahawk is an axe, and it's very unique. It's the only weapon in the game that does this.
If thou
Essentially, for
try
every one
this.
attack of the double tomahawk, it does 2 hits. So, like a normal attack would do 2 hits of axe. If you boost it once, it'll do 4 hits. Boost it twice, 6 hits. Boost it 3 times, 8 hits, so forth. And that's gonna be really big in one specific fight. It's useful in a few places, but in one fight, it's really, really important.
It's essential in that fight. Also, just want to touch on that Alaic fight a bit. So that's where you need your shadows for him. He's only weak to shadow and sword, but elemental weaknesses where you're gonna be tossing your stones. He's only weak to shadow. And I got kind of lucky. He has a skill called Panic Slash. Also, nice skip the encounter here is kind of unlikely. He has a skill called Panic Slash, which if it hits Hanet, can actually confuse her, and then it's kind of slow if you lose a few turns, and then he starts to use Dagger Storm, which is very slow. So, nice thing about using the Fox there is that it has a chance of blinding him. And in that case, it actually did matter, because I blinded Alaic and then he missed.
There is no choice.
Okay, I skipped the encounter outside, but I got this encounter, which is less likely. So, bad RNG.
One haunted 3 encounter, it's not that bad, unless you like fail an escape.
Yeah. I've had something really troll happen to me before. So what happened was that I didn't blind Alaic, but and then he panic slashed me, and then he confused me. And then the next turn he was gonna snap me out by attacking me. But then he missed because I have the Gustav shield.
That's really hilarious, honestly.
That
That's
sounds
just
so
the lie.
cursed.
Yeah, that's so troll. Did Hanet at least hit herself out of the confusion, or did she like aim for a leg and you have to wait another turn?
No, I had to eat Dagger Storm.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny though.
It's funny because normally if Alaic confuses you and then like you see that he's going next, you're like, okay, fine, he can snap me out, so I can still break Alaic before he uses the really slow Dagger Storm. But in that
Just
case,
imagine
it's
a
super
situation.
unlucky.
Imagining a situation where Hanet aims for Alaic, and then Alaic goes for Dagger Storm and misses every hit, so she's still confused. Also, fun little fact, I think the only way to have Hanet do a normal attack on like a provoke is for her to be confused.
Oh yeah, that's actually true, I think.
Yeah, let's give her some strength in a battle like a Memorial Axe or something and see if we can get her to one-shot Alaic with confusion.
You have to give her BT sword, and then probably the best bow best bow that you can get.
You probably need like
Really?
999 attack and like Fortitude buff or something. Even have a chance.
Yeah.
I don't even think fortitude to work unless you can guarantee misses on the lake.
Oh man. Would be. I kind of want to make this happen now, just for the memes.
Okay. Anyway, after now we're in Marcelin, like we said earlier, because we started a quest back in some chain. We can guide Maruf now, and this is one place where Ophelia really shines over the Cyrus route. Because in the Cyrus route, you wouldn't have Ophelia here. You would have okay, first of all, you would do the guide. You would do this after everything, after Primrose's chapters. But you would use Primrose, who essentially has the same path action as Ophelia, except it's gated by percentage instead of levels. And that allure is 30 or 32%. It's really low.
I think it was like 25, wasn't it? I don't remember.
It's like 30. It's like 28%.
It's really
Yeah, something around there.
yeah, it's really low. But yeah, so and it can become really inconsistent, especially if you fail a lot of allures. Nice, skip the encounter here. It's really nice. It's really
And
good.
it's like, and it's at 3 hours into the run, so like,
Yeah.
you can't really do much about it.
Failing 5 allures and having to reset and stuff probably loses you like 40 seconds or so. It's really slow if you get unlucky. And essentially, it's the same as, you know, Cyrus Scrutinized at the start of the run, except now it's like 3 hours into the run.
That's not the only.
And you
allure
have
that
to
Primrose-
you have to do that twice.
And you have to do
You have
that
to do it
twice
for
because
late and
there are
Maroon.
2 quests that you have to do.
Coming.
Oh my gosh, Hanit gave me that line again.
I think I failed the lake like 10 times before in the run, and that was part of the motivation for Ophi's work.
The flame guides
Just
us.
like, I think I lost like a minute on Alaic Allure.
Yeah, shoutouts to Sanjen's 11th try Alaic in one of her runs.
It's just so cursed. And it also messed up your money route because you have a purchase after that, and to restore rep costs 10,000. So you're 20k down from what you thought you had, which is just even
Well
worse.
then,
Nice turn order. This is a safe fight. So Red Eye is actually one of the few bosses that can kill people. Like there's 2 characters, I think Ophi and Hanit. If he double targets, you'll actually kill them. But a lot of the time you can just break him before a second attack, like in this case. It's very rare for that situation to occur. But if it does occur, it's one of the like harder fights to recover. It's one of the
Hana
ones
dying
worth
isn't an issue, but Ophi dying is an issue. Therion and Tressa are properly geared to, especially Therion, to barely survive a double tap from Red Eye.
we grow more
fighting. Hanit, would she have enough JP for Hang Tough if you die to Red Eye?
Yeah, she does, because of the extra, unless you took like no extra encounters.
But yeah, that's right scenario I was thinking of. Yeah, clean fight, pretty straightforward. Another 2-turn. Standard Elephants, Elfrix, Nuke, strats. One thing to take note of is that if Red Eye goes before Hanit and blinds her with a attack, we'll probably have to use Rain of Arrows there, which has a slower animation, but it's guaranteed 3 hits. Whereas if she's not blinding, she could just do 2 normal attacks, which is much faster animation-wise.
And now we're finally picking up our final character of the run, Primrose.
So I get Primrose last because she doesn't, doing her chapters doesn't really offer anything to the table.
Just figured we were saving the best for last.
I thought you said Ophi was the best.
In this route, sure, but overall, it depends. Comparable.
See, Zero's so indecisive.
Oh, it's not that I'm indecisive, it's like they're tied for me. But, right before this, we turned in our side quest that we were talking about earlier for Maruf, and we got the Trade Wind Spear. Trade Wind Spear is actually an incredible weapon. It has like 380 elemental attack, but the really important thing about it is that it buffs wind damage by 1.3 times.
flame guides us.
Sadly, sorcerers can't equip spears, so we can't use it quite yet, but it'll come into play later. But there's also another weapon that can buff wind damage by 1.3 times, which is the Primeval Bow. So you have a bow and a spear, can both buff wind, and those do stack. And there is a certain class of character that can equip both of them, and that'll get used later on. For those of you more familiar with the game, you know what I'm talking about. As well, in addition to that, Primeval Bow can actually be equipped by our sorcerers, so we'll be making use of that fairly soon, and we'll be getting that fairly soon.
Is
Yeah,
it?
we also mentioned the second magic user in the late game, and yeah, those two items are going to be relevant, and they're going to be put on a certain someone.
I think I know who it is. Is it Ulbrich?
Yes.
Yes. Ulrich's going to be the true hero of the Galdi speedrun.
No, I really want to see Ulbrich as late game sorcerer now, Quadra. Thank you.
You only need to grind for 30 minutes in the Forest of Purgation. It's not that bad.
It's reasonable. Even better. I was like at some point I started looking into an all side stories route a little bit. I was really tempted to make a Therion Sork all side stories route because he can equip 2 fire weapons, but his magic stats are so bad.
He actually has the same magic stats as Haunted.
Alpin and Haunted, I think. So, in terms of who has the highest base elemental attack, Cyrus has the highest. The next tier is Primrose and Ophelia and Tressa. And then the next tier is Haunted, Therion, Alpin, and then at the bottom is Ulbrich, sadly. But Ulbrich has the benefit of being able to stack double wind.
Yeah. Well, the problem with Therion, it isn't just the magic, it's his lack of skill points too. He has very bad SP. That was the issue I ran into.
Oh yeah.
He has lower SP than Alphin, I believe. Like
I think he
lower
might
tier.
be the lowest. I'm not sure, but it was definitely bottom tier. That ruined my Therion sorcerer dreams a little bit. So I gave up on that idea.
No, you don't.
Here I go! The nitrous command!
Some nice bonus I got from nice bonus that I got in this fight is that if Tressa goes before Ophi on the first turn, you can actually skip having to hit Rufus with your sword here. One thing about the one thing about the BT blade in these fights is that it's useful to fix some ranges, like if you can't kill them. The BT sword just does just a bit more damage that allows you to kill them.
You could throw like a soul stone or something too, but that's a resource and it's more inputs. BT sword does the job nicely. We also did that for Lord of the Forest for a little bit of extra damage, if we didn't mention it there.
Yeah.
Just equipping it early lets you just fill in a little bit more damage when you need it.
Yeah, for Lord of the Forest, you actually can't kill. You actually can't kill it without BT blade. But Rufus you can, but you need Tressa before OP on the first turn, which isn't very likely because Tressa's not really fast. Yes, discount. Let's go.
Got the discount. Optimal
Discount.
strats.
That discount's really nice because now it gives Quadra just enough to buy the Viper Dagger from the sky that you're gonna buy from and then just beat up, because why not?
A pleasure doing business with you.
This is where the money route comes into play. As long as you're not way off, you always have enough for the BT axe, but this Viper Dagger is also 60k. And if you have bad money, you either have to sell stuff to get more money, or if your money is really bad, you actually have to delay it until after Cyrus 4. And then you would buy one from a different NPC in Dust Barrel, but that was like more movement. It costs more
I
time.
believe it's like 15 seconds slower. Like, it's not ideal, but also not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 15 seconds.
It's not that bad, but it does lose time. This guy we have to talk to anyway, so it literally costs 0 time in movement. We get the Viper Dagger slightly earlier, which I don't remember if that was equipped before Lucia on anyone in a while. But being able to throw that on Therion early for speed is nice. It'll end up on him anyway at some point, so you can just do that early.
Yeah, it's nice for Darius because then you have a higher chance of breaking him before he does anything. Also,
so for this next,
go ahead,
next
Sergeant.
boss, having this wind weapon actually matters because without it, we need to use either Peacock or Elemental Break on Albus, and with the Primeval Bow, we can actually skip using any buffs and then just use Alphins and the fully boosted Ventus to kill. And the same also goes for Simeon as well, where we can avoid using where we only need to use one of the 2 buffs.
Yeah, it's a nice investment. You take a bit of time loss first to put on the bow, but then you save time in these upcoming fights.
Definitely worth it. It makes I think Simeon isn't possible to do in 2 turns, or Simeon phase 2 without the Primeval Bow. That's possible with it. And Albus is faster too with it, so it's nice. Plus Albus has high evasion, so Elemental Break kind of isn't nice to go for on him. You can miss. So it's helpful.
Yeah, you're guaranteed an encounter here, but based on
What? No, you
the encounters you got from before, you can choose to skip it melee for free or to kill it. I
Yeah.
believe you just don't. Yeah, I believe you need to kill it since you don't have enough.
Yeah, because I only took one hunted for encounter.
But ideally, you want to be on the XPJP route where you kill this anyway, just because you always get it. So might
Yeah.
as well just take it.
That's why it's so
Assuming
good to skip
Ophi's
the hunted.
first.
That's why it's so good to hit skip the hunted encounter.
Yeah.
Plus, you're also not guaranteed escape from that battle. You can get stuck there, so killing it gets rid of that possibility.
I think it's really rare in Galdera, but unfortunately, in other categories, cough AMS is pretty common
Yeah.
to get trolled.
I don't remember that being rare when I was running this. I think I got caught by that one quite a bit when I had good EXP, and I was just like, "Whoa, I have good EXP. I might as well run from this." And I see Ophi last. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm failing this escape, aren't I?" Yep. I noticed there's like this correlation where if you have like Ophi last or like your fast character last, you tend to fail to escape more. And it sucks because in that scenario, escaping is more efficient because you would have to wait for Ophi to go if you wanted to kill it. So, I don't know if there's anything to that. It could just be me noticing it more. It could be confirmation bias because that's like the worst scenario, but it definitely feels that way sometimes.
Yeah.
It makes you feel better to think about it in that way anyways. It's just like running around the torch in Whistlewood.
Manip.
But what's more optimal in Whistlewood, the torch manip or the bush manip? What's the tree manip? It's been a while.
I used the road manip.
No, that one's a weak one, I think.
Or I used the cough Kate manip, so I can skip Whistlewood.
Well, that's a good manip right there.
Okay, so we're here in Prim's chapter 4, and the upcoming fight's Prim's kind of infamous, especially in her single story, because like she is the only character with the honor of having 2 chapter 4 bosses. And
I also want to just mention that Prim's chapter 4 first boss fight, the music is just an absolute banger. So good. It's my favorite song in this game.
You hear it for like 3 seconds in Alvin's chapter 4, but then like because you have to go fast, you have to skip the cutscene. But here you get to hear it for a bit more.
Yeah, you don't get to hear as much as you do in Prim's single story unless you're like really lucky, or well, even if you're lucky, you hear it for a little more. But yeah.
Okay, something interesting we do in this fight. This is the only fight where we use Therion's steal. So not like path action steal, like the actual skill steal where you can steal items from enemies in battle. And the item that we steal is pretty important. So I'm gonna do the fight and the others can explain what's going on.
Well then.
Yeah,
I kind of don't want to talk over the fight because of the music. Sandra can explain.
I'll try to speedrun explaining it. So we're gonna break Simeon here so that we can have a 100% chance. And then basically we just make sure everyone's topped up with Prim. And then we boost Ophi's attacks, and then we fully boost Steel to steal from the lady for Mental Belt, which is an item that we're gonna need because it'll help increase our magic attack for much later on. And that's basically it for this fight. Enjoy it for probably not much longer.
That heal that he got in with Prim was really nice as well, because if you don't level up off this fight, you're not gonna go to the next fight with full HP, and then he can actually kill people. It's not a 100% consistent fight because he gets 2 attacks.
So Simeon 2 can be not too bad. It can only kind of slightly trail you. Hopefully you'll get a 2-turn here, depending on what happens.
Got it.
It's a 50% chance essentially for a 2-turn. He has to silence either Therion or Prim that attack.
Oh, that's rude.
Oh my god.
Thankfully Prim doesn't need to live because she lived the first one. Sorry, Primrose fans. I know I feel bad too.
Yeah, this is a big deal, bad man. I think it's fine as long as she lives in one of the fights. If she dies in both, then you end up short for JP for Hang Tough, if I recall correctly.
Yes,
and that is a major issue. But as long as she lives one, Okay.
You also had to take an extra second to res her out of this.
Yeah, because we
after.
can't swap her out for some reason.
So if she had to die, it's more optimal for her to die on the second boss fight.
Yeah, because you'd have to res her on the first or at the start of the second. It would be a really messy fight. Something I want to mention quickly on the first Simeon fight. The strat we do there wasn't like the original strat for when I started running. Back when I started running, we would actually go for Elemental Break on Simeon. And that had one really big downside, being that the steal was a 95% chance, not a 100, because he didn't have the extra tenebrae damage on the female puppet. And if you missed that steal, it was just, I don't even know how people recovered it back then. I think some people just like quit the run, and I think maybe some people just improvise or hope for the drop, because you could also get the drop. But it sucked. So it's nice that it's 100% now.
Yeah, again, you want the mental belt because you're gonna want to increase your elemental damage for some of your characters later. And the damage is pretty precise for the last boss.
You'll be missing kills essentially in Final Gauntlet if you don't have the mental belt. So that fight right there, the Quadras did, can be really frustrating if Opie doesn't go first, and then you get a chance to attack and hit Cyrus. Because Cyrus needs to survive that fight for JP. And if you have Opie right after that kill Cyrus, then you have to make it a 2-turn fight, and the missing JP, because you can't 1-turn it, delays your menu with Cyrus, because he won't have enough here for dancer skills. So it's really annoying when that trolls, but luckily it went just fine here.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a large menu here. We're actually gonna get all of Ophelia's reward skills so that we can put Elemental Edge over Blue Start here, and to give Cyrus a whole bunch of Tank Top and Shogozan, which are the more important ones. And we also modified some equipment menus so that Ophi got a Vendetta coat, as well as equipped the Primeval Bolt back again, and the BT staff, because now speed's not a big issue. We can have a slower Ophi. But we actually need the BT staff because we're going to be facing probably, I guess, generally in the speedrun, the toughest fight to route around. Because even though Lucia only has 84k HP, it has a ton of defenses, and it has 30 shields. And we don't have time to go through 30 shields, so we're going to want to kill her without breaking at all. So we need all the firepower that we can get. And
yeah.
She also hurts a lot, so we actually want to give Ophi Elemental Edge here, so that we don't need to give her Peacock. And that gives us just enough damage to kill her without breaking.
It's pretty cool that at this point we could actually remove elemental attack boosting armor from OP. Like we can get rid of the Sork Robe and still have enough damage to kill. We can invest more in defensive stats.
Yeah, the defense is gonna be useful, not for this boss, but the upcoming one.
Yeah. Next boss, well, he's routed in a way in this category now at this point that is not much of a threat, but next boss does an AoE and a single target attack, and it would kill squishier characters without like proper setup.
I'll do my best.
And then the fight gets really awkward to fix because he prevents use of items until you break him, so you can't revive right away as well. But going back to this fight, this is one of like the coolest things about Galdera, in my opinion. It's just like you got this 30 shield, big boss fight that just would take ages to kill if you tried to break normally, but nope, 2-turn break needed.
We don't even break Lucia. That's the beauty of this fight.
Even knock off a shield. You can keep your 30 shields. Just one shot.
We deal just enough damage to take out Lucia here. Really, really cool.
I am not a maid.
Reference, I think she has like 84,000 HP, 84,000 something, and we're hitting for a little bit over 14,000 6 times. So get rid of the hundreds, and we're hitting for 84,000 exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like the 100 damage on top of each spell secures the kill.
Yeah, that's generally why we do Cyrus's chapter 4 last, just because we need so many resources to deal with it that we generally don't have, and it doesn't really offer us much aside from another elemental augmenter that we can steal at the end, but we don't ideally we would like it, but we can't really afford to route around doing Lucia early.
Speaking of elemental augmenter, did we ever explain elemental augmenter?
We didn't. No.
We completely glossed over it when we purchased it in Stoneguard, but yeah, I'll let you guys explain it.
So there's an NPC in Snowguard. It sells Mighty Belt and Elemental Augmenter. Mighty Belt is a plus 50 attack accessory, which is good. And Elemental Augmenter is a plus 100 elemental attack accessory. There's only 3 in the game, and like I said, cap is 999, so 100 elemental attack is like 1/10 of maximum possible elemental attack. It's incredibly powerful. And we just buy one really early on for like 6,000. The old man did not know what he was holding on to there. Yeah,
Super,
another victim.
Super useful, so worth it. So
Yeah,
worth it to make the detour to pick it up.
This game is actually
early just for that.
Yeah, this game is actually oriented more towards magic. Just magic in general is just a lot more busted than melee physical attacks are, unfortunately.
But we do use
very specific
physical.
setup.
Yeah, we do use physical for Galdera. Really cool fight.
It makes
yeah,
a bit of
physical
sense because you probably use the physicals a lot more casually, like doing normal attacks and stuff, figuring out weaknesses. But it's like when you already know everything, it makes more sense for magic to be a bit better.
It's easier to buff magic, that's the thing. With physical, you need a lot more of a specific setup.
I think it's more just sorcerer spells are really overpowered compared to physical. AoE triple hit is kind of huge, and you can hit any element.
Yeah, not to
Like
mention
physical, you can buff too, but it's harder to spec. And also the elemental augmenters don't exist for physical, or like really good body helmets for buffing attack. It's kind of unique to
there are
magic.
there are a lot of equipment, a lot of support skills that buff elemental damage, not so much for physical.
Yeah.
And I think
Elemental edge.
elemental damage also scales better. And the multipliers on elemental skills are generally very high, especially certain 6 element attack that we're gonna use later.
Yeah, physical. For the most ideal damage, you need to be like very low HP for physical hits, and which can be troublesome because also leveling up takes you out of critical HP.
Oh yeah, the beauty of this fight. Everyone is double tap proof. Maybe someone can explain it.
You ready for this?
Yeah, so we give Tressa here cover for a very specific reason. And I did mention that Ophelia gets the Vendetta coat, and that actually helps make her double tap proof because Darius does actually quite a bit of damage with both steal item and HP thief. So generally, like if you didn't have the gear, everyone would get double tap, especially Therion. But now with this very specific setup, everyone except Cyrus is able to take double taps, and Cyrus is fine anyways because King Tough puts him to 1 HP range, and Tressa conveniently has cover for that very specific reason.
Yeah, and we wanted to teach the warrior skills to Tressa anyway, because she's gonna need surpassing power for later.
I just want to point out that Quadra did 34k and one-shot him with Ignis are there. If he wanted to do more damage, he could have also done Aventus Saltaire, which gets the 1.3 boost for free move bow. We just don't need it at this point. We kill anyway.
Yeah. Also notice that I broke normally you would have to defend with Tressa because you need elephants, but because she was already going before OP the next turn, I did something a bit more optimal there, and I used a spear with Tressa instead. That allowed me to break Darius before he got to do his second move. And so that saves a bit of time.
Also, the reason we do Darion's Chapter 4 last, well, there's 2 reasons. One is the steal. We want to be as high level as possible before the steal, because at level 45, it's a 55% chance. And before that's a 15. Also because when you finish Darion's Chapter 4, it puts you outside Boulder Fall. And that is the closest place to this fight right here, which we need to do to unlock the Gate of Finis. And this isn't unlocked, like you can't do this side quest until you do like the side quest required and until you finish every character's main story. So it just lines up nicely. You finish Farion, that's the last one, and it puts you close to Galdera.
Hey,
Fight, however, is pretty straightforward. Tiger is not that strong.
Final fight before the Finis dungeon.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of preparation that we have to do here now. So, spoilers: Tressa is now going to become our mage, aka
No,
sorcerer.
I thought it was over.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Olbrich fans. You have to put him aside for now, but don't worry, he gets glory in his own way later. So yeah, we're also gonna give Theron all the fortified nuts as well as most of the sharp nuts here, because he's gonna be our physical damage dealer. We're gonna give Wolfie Runelord here. We gave Tressa all the Sork skills, and then we're gonna have Therion as a support merchant for a while. We're also gonna put the BTX on Ophi, and then we're gonna equip in such a way that Tressa now gets all the good Sork or the good magic damage items. And then we have to give the badge to Cyrus there because, or else we wouldn't have enough JP for him to get elephants.
Will you ever mention what BTX does?
Oh yeah, so BTX not only gives you a decent amount of okay amount of physical and magic damage, it also gives a 30% damage boost to lightning and ice, which is really OP for Nax.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the only weapon that buffs 2 elements.
I believe so, yeah.
And Rune Lords can equip axes, so... And also, Rune Lords have been used all the elements in a very efficient way.
Here you go.
It works out really nicely, buffs our Rune Lord damage quite a bit, which you'll see right now.
Elemental break.
So we're not really gonna be using Sork spells here, or Sork boost like Elephant and Aelfrix because we don't need it anymore. Balagars will Guile will do our job.
Barugayo.
You can see Balgar's blade here. This is the God, I forgot the job's name.
It's a Rune Lord Divine, yeah.
There we go, Rune Lord. It's a Rune Lord Divine.
Let's get this over.
The runes by themselves aren't that good. They do get used like once, but what they do is they may buff your normal attack to hit with elemental damage after, and the multiplier is really good, but it's like a turn of setup. It's not affected by DP,
No, you
so it's
don't.
kind of meh. The divine skill of Rune Lord is incredibly powerful, as you saw there. It's 6 hits of elemental damage. It's fairly strong. And we're gonna one-shot pretty much every... Well, not completely one-shot. We're gonna one-shot some of them with Balgar. Some of them will need a little bit more damage, but next state fights will just be basically Balgar's blade.
Here I come, mighty Balagar.
Yeah, so we do these first 2 fights with Cyrus because he still needs a little bit more JP for elephants, and then after that we're gonna replace him for Alphen, since we actually do need a little bit, I believe a little bit more JP on Alphen. I don't remember, probably not much, but we also want the levels on Alphen anyways, and he also just brings a lot of utility to the table in any case, so having him is really nice as well.
It's just more useful now with Double Tomahawk. Cyrus is nice in the previous 2 fights because it's already equipped with Hunter, so he can hit the weaknesses of like Miguel. So has some utility, but it's mostly just because he still needs JP.
Yeah. We gave Ulbrich all the speed weapons so the Platinum Sword, Hasty Helm, and 2 Sprightly Necklaces, because
Here you go.
for Galdera, we actually want him to be faster, very fast, and faster than Therion, because we're going to be looking for a specific turn order.
Question, do you guys remember the name of the plus 100 speed sword that we used to buy in the laundry shop?
Trinity
Trinity
Sword?
Sword.
There we go, thank you. I forgot this a bit ago. It was bugging me. So yeah, that used to be the one we used to buy for Ulbrich, but it's more expensive, and money route is a bit tighter at this point. So instead we just steal the Platinum Sword off that one guy. It's 80%, it's like 80 speed. It's not really a noticeable difference. But at some point that was part of the route, so you needed a bit more money.
Hey,
So
this
this
fight is the only one that can go wrong.
Shadow Darius here can actually kill you if he gets 2 runs in a row. Oh no.
Yeah, this is a sketchy turn order.
Oh, well, Alphen got hit anyway.
Okay.
Here you go.
Yeah, the only person who can survive getting double tapped is Alphen. Everyone else pretty much just falls over. This wasn't ideal, but this works out just fine.
Elemental break.
You can actually. This is actually a damage range. Have you had Quadra not done the extra attacks by like I don't know under 1,000 HP if you low roll your Battle Guard's blade?
Guides us true.
I think you could have boosted Elemental Break one more time, and that with the combined with the earlier break might have actually covered it too. Actual like Elemental Break hit damage.
I've actually missed it even with Elemental Break, so
Even
just the
like
things
fully
you
buffed
see.
up.
My turn. No, you will not.
Yeah, it's a really tight fight in terms of damage. It's actually one of the places where Cyrus is once again better, because even with the extra magic nut M on OP, Cyrus does still end up having overall higher elemental attack at this point.
Elemental break.
So like these damage ranges are a bit less tight with him, but it's completely manageable, and obviously OP has other benefits.
Mighty Baladar.
Did we mention what this gauntlet is about? I don't think we did, but yeah, basically before facing the big head honcho boss, you have to go through a gauntlet with a more powerful version of the bosses that we had previously fought.
It's like a Mega Man game where you gotta fight the 8 bosses again before you do final bosses. Very similar.
That's it. That's basically the story. But anyhow, here we're gonna do another big menu here. We're gonna get a Tressa Dracing spell and switch Therion to Warrior. And then we're gonna give Alpha and Ophi and Therion all of their main skills.
I missed it. Did you give Cyrus his stuff?
I believe so. I'd assume so.
I'm just checking because that's like the most common menu mistake, and it's like the worst menu mistake you can make at the same time.
This should help.
That's always a little scary. This is actually another fight that's a little bit better with Cyrus. Sadly, Ophi has slightly worse Ophi Bond fights because she doesn't have Lightning Blast too. She doesn't have Scholar Base, and the skeletons are weak to lightning. So you have to throw a Shadow Stone, which luckily you always get off of Simeon, and do a Tenetris to break them. But otherwise, the fight's still pretty straightforward. Tressa will take care of the skeletons and add a little bit more damage on Yvonne, and then the Balgard's Blade Yvonne, and it's still a pretty straightforward kill.
Yeah, we don't use Elemental Break here because we have to kill the skeletons.
Time to close up shop.
So unfortunately, we gotta make full use of Tressa's abilities, and yeah, you're gonna see she does a decent amount of damage with Ventus with both of the weapons, but you'll see for the big head honcho boss, she's gonna do a lot of damage. But we're pretty much coming up on the last two kind of bosses that we do.
This one's still pretty straightforward. Next one is a bit more interesting because we're gonna do something special on it. So there's a equip support skill in this game called Fortitude. You unlock it like very late from the War Master line. And what Fortitude does, essentially you do more damage the lower HP you are. Up to 3x damage at like below a certain threshold. 1 HP is always be 3x damage, so that's what we go for. Another property of, like there's a skill in this game called Revive, which you can use to revive dead characters. Fairly straight and fairly self-explanatory.
You ready for this?
If you don't boost it at all, or if you do it outside of combat, it will revive the characters at 1 HP. So what we're gonna have to do here is intentionally kill off Therion and revive him after the battle. So he ends up at 1 HP, and I'll set up Fortitude for him for an upcoming fight.
That's a big idea.
We're gonna have him do Insight here, so Warner targets him specifically, and we're not gonna end the fight until Warner kills him, which he'll always do on turn 2.
On turn 2, Werner always does Sweep and Double Strike, so both of those are guaranteed to kill Therion, which is what we want. And then after that, we can kind of just kill him for free. So that's why this is a 3-turn and we do this very specific setup.
Here I come, mighty Baladar.
Also, I quickly had the thought process of what if we revive him here right away so he'd come back with 1 HP. The reason you can't do that is because you would level up off of the fight, and whenever you level up, you get a full heal. That's why we also do it last, because that way, like, we only keep him have him dead for 1 fight. If you did it earlier, you would purposely have to keep him from leveling up every single fight, which means you'd probably have to kick him out of the party. And Therion definitely needs the EXP, because this is gonna have a big role to play.
This is the final menu, so now we're going to take Primrose, Cyrus, and Haunted out and learn the respective skills that we need. So Primrose is going to get Hang Tough here, as well as Hunter and Leg Hold. Cyrus is going to get his Divine here with Elephants. And then he already has Hang Tough, so we just need to swap him to Dancer, and he's good. We're gonna give Darion his War Master skills and Nightmare and all the other skills except for Winter Hills, and then Haunted just gets Merchant just because in very rare cases we would need that to help break.
She needs to win Hang Tough, so she needs to go in there anyway, and she doesn't need anything else, so you just leave it on. Here we set up our characters from the boss fight. Farion got a bunch of physical skills right there. Got Physical Prowess, which is automatic attack and defense buff. Fortitude, got Surpassing Power, so you can break damage limit, and BP Eater, I believe, because 0.5x damage for free. Amazing. And we're into the second last fight.
Yeah, so Quadra has to watch his turn order here, so he kind of wants a staggered turn order so that he can get a heal off, because if the eye gets 2 consecutive attacks, it's pretty likely someone's going to die, and our characters are only built to kind of take like one thing at a time. So we're going to have a very specific setup here. So we're going to use Peacock on Tressa, and then, so Ulfi thankfully now has a free turn to use a rune, which is what we're going to need later. So we taught Doters because we're going to make use of our rev jams here. And also on turn 3, we are going to hope for a good turn order. We're going to use Lux to break this ad here. Because and then we want this certain turn order here because we want Ulfi to kill the ad here before the eye gets his turn next turn, so that we don't have to see ads get summoned. And then pretty much from there, once we break him, now we just need to fully buff Tressa up. So Alpin's gonna defend here to break the eye the next turn. Tressa's we're gonna put every single buff that we can physically put on Tressa here. Elephants, Peacock, even Dracing spell, Aelfrix, you name it.
So look at some of your divine skills there. Doters is really OP. Essentially, you use it on the character, and then like any item that character uses, it's used on all characters. Then Dracing spell basically makes magic crit, so you get an extra 1.25x multiplier. And the whole goal for this fight, at least at the start, while you're setting up, you want to make sure that you kill the ad, and then break the eye before he gets a turn. As soon as you kill the ad, if the eye gets a turn, he's summoning more ads, and the fight gets really bad. So your whole goal with the turn order is to make that happen. With some unlucky turn orders, it could be unavoidable, but as long as you have Tressa or Ophi after the eye for free, it generally works.
I hope everyone enjoyed the 500k damage in one turn. By the way, Tressa did around 380, 400k, and Ulfi did around 100k. Just to let you all know.
That's the highest HP boss in the game right there, the 500,000 HP. And we just one turn nuked him. Well, 5-turn fight, but we took out all the HP in one turn. Really cool. Our multipliers right there.
Okay.
And this is part 2 of Galdi, so we want one thing. We want either Ulbrich and Darion, which he got Darion first, but we just don't want Maul to get a turn before we hit Darion. So, this turn order is 100% ideal, but thankfully, we have a backup for Darion going first. But we do have to be very. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the thing with this fight is that the Maw can do big AoE magic attacks, and if it does it, you just wipe. It just kills you, and you have to redo everything, which is horrible. But the thing is, if the Maw is half HP or less, it won't do it that turn. So if you have Therion, someone before Therion, then Therion, you can just do it with A-Burst and not give you well half. If you have Therion first, you can't palm him, so you can't do A-Burst. So what you do is you do Nightmare Chimera and throw Warner's Sword at the head. That puts it under that half HP threshold, so I won't do that big AoE magic and you get to live. If you have a Therion after Maw, you have no way of hitting that damage threshold, then he can just kill you if you get unlucky, which is just a one killer. You can't do anything about it, there is no counterplay. But it's pretty rare, because Therion's pretty fast, and then Maw's like the slowest component of Galdera.
The Panther Dance.
It works out fine most of the time.
That's a very nice use of Panther Dance there. To manipulate turn orders. And yeah, we actually specifically coded Light Black, because if we didn't, then Light Black would use the Fear Enchantment, and if Blade was after Light Black, we would get AoE'd, and that's not very good. But
it also tears everyone. Prevents boost. Would kill Therion, it just, yeah.
Now with
I was gonna
this,
say
we
something.
can use a Nightmare Chimera, so we're gonna yeet Death Cleaver for full 99,999 damage, or close to it. And then we use Abers to get the last hit in, and that's basically Galdera, so time's coming up pretty soon, kind of soon here.
Time is on the prompt with like a money and spurning ribbon after 3 cutscenes after this fight.
Don't start things you can't finish.
There we go, GG.
Oh, that was
And
stressful.
GG's.
Always
Well done.
stressful to do that fight.
Yeah. Especially in the marathon setting where it's
Exactly.
like if you die,
Gosh. If you die, you don't have a save time.
yeah,
Sorry.
you can't save. As soon as you enter the gate, you can't save. Time is
Now.
Yeah,
Sometime
which we get
now.
more on delay.
yeah. There's a bit of a delay with the commentators, but it's fine. Anyway, yeah. If you die in that fight, you like respawn outside. If you have a save, so do the entire gauntlet again. Ah, oh my gosh, that was stressful. The fight itself is just stressful, but yeah.
Yeah. And especially you don't get ideal like orders. Like you have to be really thinking about like your turn order like for that entire fight. So like it's definitely probably one of the most stressful fights.
There's a lot of things to look out for, especially that late into the run, especially if you're on a very good pace. A lot of things you have to pay attention to. Thankfully, nothing bad happened, even though Therion was first. That wasn't the ideal turn order, but it's still a win. Yeah. Okay, that was... Oh, sorry?
Still win. I was gonna say losing a bit of time, but yeah, it's a guaranteed fight, which is like with the last fight of the run, it's like take those.
Yeah, in a marathon, you just take it. 40 seconds time loss, but whatever. Yeah, that is the end of the run. It's Galdera. Again, very cool category. I hope you enjoyed the commentary as we tried to explain not only what was going on the route, but also like past iterations of the route, like how the route has developed. So I hope you all enjoy that. Again, big thanks to my the 2 commentators who were able to take time out of their schedule to help commentate my run today. So really thankful for that. And yeah, any shout outs y'all want to give? I think for me, just want to shout out to the Octopath community. Really nice bunch of people. Really would be more than willing to help you all get started if you want to speedrun this game. And also I want to shout out to the Singaporean speedrunning community. So yeah, I've got my it's here. I've got my flag right here. So yeah. Anyone y'all want to shout out?
Same as you to the Octopath community. Everyone's really friendly and helpful. And if you guys like the run and you'd like to try it yourself, I recommend joining the Octopath speedrunning Discord.
We have some
I'd also
pretty
like to
good
shout out
notes.
Quadra. Keeping the game alive, doing Galdi runs constantly.
Yeah,
working on new
shouts
stuff.
to Quadra for being dedicated, even though I guess me and Zero kind of moved on, but we're still always here in spirit.
Well, I got other games that I want to run as well, but Galdi is just, Galdi is just always a great category to run, and it's really nice to show off.
I want to say though too, Octopath, there's a lot of categories for Octopath for everyone, like especially time-wise. If Galdera is too much of a long run for you, we have the single story categories, which almost all of them are pretty much like, once you get started running them, they're about under an hour. And if that's too short for you, we have the half game categories, which is about 2 hours. So there's a category for pretty much like everyone, and it's very newbie friendly, and we have plenty of like beginner friendly guides for certain single stories.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's about it. So thank you again. Thank you for watching, and thank you to BSG for having us.
And thanks to Quadra and BSG for having me and Zero on. Definitely always enjoy commentating Galdi runs. There's always a lot to talk about.
Always a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it was definitely great having you. Thank you so much for showing us this run. You didn't even need my job over here. Like, you were all so well enthusiastic about it that it all went super well in my opinion. And I enjoyed, and I hope everyone else did as well.
Oh yeah, one more thing. What was the final time? Because I don't have a timer on.
3:32:14.
Oh, that's really good.
Pretty good.
It's really good.
yeah, really solid run. We also got like a last minute donation in here, 20 euros from Counter Rockets. Thank you so much for that donation. And at one point, I also just closed the incentive for the language, which everyone's so thankful for all the donations. It raised over 100 euros, so that's super amazing. Yeah, and that's gonna be it's now for the Octopath Traveler run, but we've got some more things coming up for you. The up next is gonna be I didn't have my schedule open yet because the run ended a little bit earlier than I thought. But I know that's going to be Freya Spirit, but where is my schedule? While I looked it up, I want to remind everyone that if you donate today, you can still be eligible for a couple of prizes. If you donate at any point, you donate €7.50 or more, you'll be eligible to win a cool Majora's Mask displayed. If you really it looks really cool, so make sure to do that. And otherwise, some other prizes, gift cards, also for some lower amounts as well, so make sure to check those out. So yeah, up next, now that I have the schedule in front of me, it's going to be Freya Spirit doing Weird Dreams, which seems like a really cool run, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm going to be off for today. I'm going to be replaced here by Crew, who's going to be hosting for a while. Sorry for the super long outro, but yeah, that's it. Stay tuned during the intermission, and we'll hopefully see you soon.